Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by Brianna Reed 4 on Wattpad. Now let's start. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 Midoriya was pronounced dead at 12:43 p.m. on her children's 12th birthday. She'd been preparing their birthday dinner when a storage fire had caused the apartment building she was living in to explode. Izuku and Izumi Midoriya, her twins, had thankfully been at school, but had come to find they had no home or mother to welcome them. Originally, it was believed both of them were quirkless, but that horrific event had triggered something inside them. As they clung to each other, screaming in grief, their deep-seated quirks activated. Both of them possessed the quirks to enhance their body's natural abilities. Their cries of agony became shockwaves, their grips on each other put bruises on the skin, and when the cops tried to console them, both ran. Their speed, even as they clenched each other's hands, was unmatchable. They ditched and dodged the police for hours, refusing to be taken in because they knew where it would take them. However, they were two 12-year-old kids with no family and where to go. "What are we gonna do now, Izuku?" Izumi cried as they sat on a bench near the train station. It was now dark outside. The air crisp and cool with fall, and Izuku pulled off his jacket to drape it around his sister. "Where can we go? We don't have anyone left." "I don't know, but we can't stay here." Izuku clenched his hands in his breath's pockets. The effects of their quirks had worn off. Both were tired and sore from the exertion of power. "If we stay, they might separate us. We can't let that happen, we're all each other has now. We can't just keep running. What about school? What about Mom's body and her funeral arrangements? What about Dash?" Her mind whirling with worries and grief, Izumi started to go into panic mode. "Izumi and Izuku Midoriya," a voice called out and had both of them jerking their heads up. They got to their feet when they saw the police badge and both looked ready to run, but he held his hands up for peace. "Easy, my name is Detective 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. I'm a friend. You won't take me away from my sister. I know the law says you have to put us into juvenile services, but you have to keep us together, otherwise we'll just keep running." Izuku boldly told him and had 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 smiling. "That won't be necessary, Midoriya-kun. According to the records we have, the rightful guardian is listed and I'll be taking you to him." He put a hand over his heart. "I swear it to you." "What?" Izumi came out from behind him. "Our mom didn't have any family left, our grandparents died when we were babies." "Wait, our father?" Izuku suddenly spoke up. "Is it our father?" "No, but why don't I let him make the introductions?" Come. He motioned them to his car. "You've both have had a long day. I'm sure you're tired and could use some food and sleep." The two of them looked at each other, and gripping each other's hands they nodded and walked with him. They were taken to the police station where they were fed, and able to take small naps in the break room. At nearly 1 in the morning the doors to the station opened, and a short elderly man walked in hobbling on a cane. It surprised them both to see he was wearing a hero's costume. "So, these are my new wards, huh?" 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 tapped his cane smiling. "Good evening." Excuse me, but who are you?" Izuku asked, keeping a protective arm around his sister. "You can call me Grandpa 𝐀𝐻𝐿, and I'll be taking your charge as of today. I've finished the paperwork, so come on you two, I'll take you to my home." He turned and waited for them. Izuku and Izumi looked to each other, teary-eyed and worn, but followed obediently. 𝐀𝐻𝐿 lived south of 𝐾𝐮, in a small town on the outskirts of the countryside. The population was small, and the crime rate next to non-existent. It was the perfect place for them to mourn in private. Over the next few days 𝐾𝐿 took the time to analyze and admire them. The two looked very much alike. Had they both been boys they'd be identical. Still, Izumi had fair skin, delicate hands, almond-shaped eyes, and hair long and curly around her face. Izuku was thin, and despite the boyish physique he had a feminine gait when he walked. His short CRP of hair was thick and curly like his sister's but rested just above his earlobes. In personality they were similar but didn't quite match up like their looks did. Izuku was honest and studious, and even when trying to show courage and fight back, his eyes plainly showed the fear inside him. And while Izumi was shy and quiet, he often saw a flicker of fight and spark lying just under the surface. He imagined she had a temper hidden behind that quiet demeanor of hers. He had plans for them, especially now that their quirks had awakened. It was his charge to guide them and ensure they would stay safe as their father had asked of him. So, 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 sat at the table, Izumi at the stove cooking breakfast, and Izuku scribbling notes his book. He'd bought them all new clothes and supplies, but because of his lack of proper funds he'd have to homeschool the kids himself since he couldn't afford tuition. I've given both of you time to adjust to your new surroundings. It's time we got serious. Izumi glanced back from the stove, and Izuku up from his book. 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 scratched his temple. They even stared blankly at him the same way. Twins, powerful twins, scary. I heard you two have only recently awoken your quirks. That's right. Izuku sat up straight. The doctors believed we were both quirkless, something about our pinky toes. Izuku wiggled his toes, and lifted up his pinky finger, staring at it curiously. Ah, doctors. What do they really know? 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 waved it off. At any rate, the reason I was put in your charge is because of a promise I made to your father. Our father? Izumi nearly dropped the spatula. You know who he is. I do, but don't get excited because I was also told never to tell you the truth. That man will reveal himself to you sooner or later, in his own way. He's still alive. Izumi scowled at that and tapped her fingers irritably on her crossed arms. Where the hell was he when Mom needed help? Izumi, Izuku scolded. That's not fair. Isn't it? Izumi slammed the spatula down and turned off the fire. 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 thought with a slight smirk. There was the temper he'd sensed. If the girl could argue, she could certainly fight. We've never met the man. He keeps his distance, practically abandons us and moves us into the custody of other people. If he's really that concerned about our well-being, then where the hell is he? That's enough, Izumi. As I said before, he'll reveal to you in time and you can ask me all these questions when he does. For now it's my job to make sure you're properly trained and protected. He smiled when Izumi put his taiyaki in front of him, then Izuku's proper breakfast in turn before sitting down herself to eat. After a firm bite of his breakfast, he wagged a finger at them. You'll have to think HRD on how you will use these quirks in the future. Izuku already knows what he wants. Izumi spoke up and smiled at her brother. You want to be a hero like All Might, don't you? 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 raised a brow when Izuku flushed and rubbed the back of his head. Ah well, yes, sort of. Izuku's always dreamed of being a hero, and he's idolized All Might for years. Izumi explained. It's the reason why he's always kept a journal of all the heroes he's admired and writes down strategies and analyzations on their quirks and fighting styles. Is that so? Interesting. You'll have you show me that one day. I'll have to see if I still have any. Most of them went up in the fire, but I have a couple I wrote down from memory. Izuku fiddled with his bag and Izumi shook her head. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 has one of them, doesn't he? You said he wanted to borrow it. Ah, right? Izuku scratched his cheek nervously. He may not have it anymore. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫? 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 questioned. Back home he has a friend named 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. He's an amazing talent, and Izuku's always looked up to him, although he tends to be a JRK in my opinion. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 just likes to brag. Izuku started and Izumi frowned into her tea. And be a bully. She finished. Izuku has the heart of a real hero. The only thing he lacked is a quirk. She turned fully to her brother. Now that you have one, Izuku, you can finally live that dream out. Ah, yeah, but I don't even know how to use it yet. Izuku looked at his hand, flexing it. For the past couple days I've been trying to activate it again, but nothing happens. One for all is not a quirk that's easy to control. 𝐻𝐿𝐼𝐼 put in. You will both need to learn to activate it and control it. One for all. Izumi raised a brow. Is that what it's called? It is your father's quirk. Normally that power is passed down to only one per generation, but since the two of you are twins, you're the first in 9 generations to both possess it. It comes in many shapes and forms, but in essence it's an ability enhancer. Strength, speed, dexterity, even charisma. The more power you attain, the stronger the quirk becomes for the future possessor. Many have tried to steal this quirk for themselves through forceful means, and it's dangerous to reveal its secrets to the world. Is that why we've never met our father, and why we're here with you now? Yes, and if you truly want to be a hero, Izuku, we have much to go over. Izumi, what about you? Izumi lifted her eyes up from her meal. Me? Yes, what would you do with one for all? Izumi thought about it, tapping her fingers on her teacup and smiling slowly. It doesn't matter as much to me as it does Izuku, but I'd like to be a hero as well. I want to be able to stand by him and help him in any way that I can. She grabbed Izuku's hand, smiling. You have no aspirations of your own. Being a twin is good, but you're your own person, Izumi. 𝐴𝐵 started, but Izumi shook her head. You wouldn't understand, no one ever does. Izuku and we've been together since 𝐵. He's my best friend, and I'd do anything for him. Anything. She repeated to herself while looking at her brother. Despite having no quirk, her brother had always inspired her. Even when he was afraid, even when he was against odds, Izuku always found a way to fight back and protect what he cared about. 3 years later, Baka brother. Izumi frowned at her brother in his hospital bed. You could have gotten yourself killed. I'm sorry, sis. Izuku, bandaged from the neck down, lay back against his pillow, sighing. I couldn't help it, no one was around. What was I supposed to do? Call the police, call Grandpa. Just because there's no heroes in this town doesn't mean you gotta save everyone yourself. You don't have a license, you don't have enough fighting experience, and now Grandpa is being reprimanded by the cops again. What will you do if he loses custody of us? I said I was sorry, what more do you want me to say? He grunted in pain and had Izumi's temper surfacing. That you'll never do it again. She screamed at him, rubbing at her tears. Idiot. Don't cry, Izumi. I can't wipe them, they've got me bandaged like a mummy. He fidgeted and wrinkled his nose, feeling it itch. Grandpa can't afford proper healers. She wiped at the tears herself and reached out, scratching his nose for him, and he sighed with relief. You'll be in the hospital for months healing from this. Months? Izuku suddenly looked panicked and he slammed his head back. Damn it, that means I'll miss the entrance exam. What? Izumi's head shot up. You were seriously gonna take that test? Of course. It's the same place All Might graduated. It's the best school for heroes and the hardest one to get in. They only have a 1% acceptance rating, you know. I hear their practical test is no joke either. I was prepared for that. But I guess it doesn't matter now. Izuku sighed, his eyes going miserable. There's no way I'd recover in time to take the test. I'll just have to wait and apply next year. Really want to go, don't you? Izumi frowned and gripped her skirt in her fingers. That's why you've been putting in all that extra time training and studying. Why you go off on your own for days at a time and come back drained. Yeah, now it's all going to waste. Izuku shut his eyes tightly. 𝐀𝐮𝐬, I know I saved that woman, but now it all feels so useless. Brother, Izumi looked down. She hadn't seen him this upset since the doctor told them they were quirkless. Was what he wanted. She bit her lip before standing. Leave it to me. What? Izuku glanced up at her. What do you mean, leave it to you? Don't worry about it. You just concentrate on getting better. I'm here for you, Izu. I always have and always will. She clenched her fist over her heart and smiled at him. I won't let you down. Izumi, easier said than done, Izumi thought. Even with Grandpa 𝐴𝐵 busy at the hospital taking care of Izuku, she found it hard to go through with her plan. She had tried to get a hold of the school and ask if her brother could take the test on another date after he recovered, but was shot down immediately. There were too many interested students to accommodate just one inconvenience, or so the representative told her. So she'd go with the desperate plan B. Since Izuku couldn't take the exam, she'd take it for him. Izuku was smart and strong and would have certainly passed with flying colors. She just had to do well enough to get accepted, and then he would prove himself come the beginning of the school year. Cutting her hair would be the painful part. She thought about using a wig but worried it would fly off during practical. She'd always had long hair, and to see it in a pile on her bathroom floor made her heart drop. She didn't even like the way it came out, all those short curls framing her face. She just looked like a cute girl with short hair. She needed to buoy herself up. She tried taping her chest, but her biceps were too big and she whimpered from the pain. She needed help pulling this off and knew exactly who to go to. 𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗘. Izumi poked her head into the basement room of the 𝐻𝗧𝗟 household. "Who is it?" Mavis 𝐻𝗧𝗟 called from above in a sing-song voice. Izumi scanned the room before looking up and going blue. "Gay. 𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗃. You're flying. Ah, Midoriya-chan. Aren't my new babies wonderful? I call them hoversols." He lowered himself down and flipped up his goggles, grinning. "They're my ticket to enter you. A support course. They're wonderful." Izumi admired them and lifted a hand to run over the slick metal. "I liked the Buster jetpack you made, but these are awesome and I bet real useful for heroes with floating quirks. Help them gain speed and control. You know it. Now how can I help you, Midoriya?" His eyes twinkled. "Need me to make one of my super cute babies for ya?" She laughed even as a sweat drop formed at her temple. She wished he wouldn't use her and his cute baby in the same sentence. "Maybe though I wouldn't. Put it like that. I need you to help me turn into my brother." Mavis scratched his cheek. You want me to turn you into your brother? That's a curious request. How shall I do it?" He contemplated a moment, looking her up and down, and then thumping his hand on his palm he grinned. "I've got just the thing." He hurried off, rummaging through his stuff, and pulled out a full-body jumpsuit. I made it for those heroes that want to appear intimidating. I'll just need to add a few modifications." He glanced back at her. "You'll want to change your hair as well." "I already cut it. What more do I have to do? It still looks too feminine. You should try a much bolder cut, something boyish and trendy. A side shave would look great on you and Midoriya-kun." What?" Izumi paled as Mavis searched around and pulled out a buzzer from a drawer. "Leave it to me." He sent it revving and had Izumi bolting for the door. "Oh no, you don't." "No, I said no ga." 20 minutes later, Izumi whimpered as tears spilled down her cheeks. She'd been so frightened of the initial cut, and now to see more if her hair on the floor broke her heart. "It's for Izuku, it's for Izuku. I've finished the modifications. Try it on." He held out the bodysuit and Izumi numbly took it and walked behind a large machine to change. She slipped on the bodysuit, and the moment she zipped it into place, Izumi gasped as it moved and squeezed and molded until she was flat-chested and sporting a six-pack along her belly. "Holy Mavis. You're a genius." Izumi admired herself in the mirror and saw her brother staring back. "That's his body shape to AT. The hair." She slid her fingers over the buzz against her temple. The rest of her hair was curly and layered, but the buzz added a chic edge that took away the feminine accents on her face. There was only the slightest difference in their features now. Her almond-shaped eyes, gentle brows, and the size of her feet was all that differentiated her and her brother. "You'll need to recharge it overnight. It's a standard battery pack kept here in waist. I can shorten the sleeves to elbow length if you'd like." "Yeah, that'll make it easier to hide under clothes. Other than that, everything's great. So, what do you think of my cute baby Midoriya-chan?" "I think it's perfect, and just what I need." She looked over her shoulder, smirking. "Name your price, 𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗃. I'll take it." She and her brother would have to submit to testing and experiments with new products, but Izumi thought it was a fair trade for the right to use Mavis' work. The body shaper he'd given her was the perfect tool to use for her disguise, and it was surprisingly light, like an undershirt. She slipped it on under her clothes and waited until she was far enough away from the house before activating it. She left bright and early to take the train and made sure to leave a note for her grandfather telling him she was out with friends and would return by dark. She managed to keep her haircut a secret by wearing hats, hoods, and bandanas, but something told her he already knew. Grandpa Torino had always been one step ahead of them no matter the circumstances. It had been a long time since she'd seen her hometown. She pressed her face to the glass of the train window and sighed sadly. She would have to stop by the cemetery and leave flowers for her mother before leaving the area. Maybe even visit the apartment grounds, just to reminisce and privately grieve a little. Pushing depressing images out of her mind, she concentrated on the task at hand. After exiting the train, she quickly walked the mile to the school and stood in front of the gates with wide, appreciative eyes. The place was like a palace, with its shining windows, bold gold lettering, and ornate gates. Students from various schools filed in one by one, all ready to take their exams. She and Izuku had been homeschooled, so neither of them had a school uniform. Instead, she'd chosen to wear a nice black shirt and slacks, and kept the first few buttons loose the way she knew Izuku liked to wear it. Normally, Izuku would wear a backpack, but she hadn't felt like lugging his huge sack with her, and settled on a laptop bag strapped over her. Izumi felt the first flutter of nerves when she took the first few steps up to the school, and immediately pulled out a notebook to start jotting down descriptions. She wanted everything she saw recorded for Izuku. The more he knew about today, the better. Her lips moved and murmured as she wrote, and she let out a yelp when she felt a back against her back and an explosion ripple over it. She whirled around, green eyes flaring with temper, and then blinked in wide-eyed surprise. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Well, if it isn't Deku. 𝐒𝐮𝐵𝐲 sneered at him. Changed your look some, haven't you? Humph, surprised you even noticed. Izumi narrowed her eyes on him. I'm not quirkless anymore, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, so watch it. Surprise lit 𝐒𝐮𝐵𝐲's eyes, then a smirking challenge. Oh, or what? He leaned in, snagging her face in his hands and squeezing her cheeks. You gonna cry, Deku? She smacked his hand away, once again surprise lighting 𝐒𝐮𝐵𝐲's face. I'm not fighting you here, but push me and I won't hesitate to push back. Since when did you grow a pair of balls? He retorted, crossing his arms and eyeing her suspiciously. Yesterday, she smirked at him and whirled around to walk away. Tis all talk, I bet. He waited a moment, letting her get a head start before calling out. Hey, Deku. What? She whirled back around, snarling. How's your sister? He asked casually, walking casually up to him. Izumi's eyes narrowed. She's fine. I haven't seen her since your mother's funeral. He ruffled a hand through her hair and brushed a thumb over the buzz, his eyes narrowing some at the change. She as ugly as you. Izumi grimaced and turned her nose up, smacking his hand away again. Hideous, definitely not your type. Heh, 𝐒𝐮𝐵𝐲 snorted out a laugh. Can't wait to see her again, we'll have loads to talk about. Am I right? He bumped shoulders with her and walked off. Izumi snarled in response and ruffled her hair back into place. You haven't changed a bit, 𝐀𝐮𝐿. You're still just a JRK. She'd planned to avoid him the rest of the day, but fate had her grimacing when their numbers turned out to be consecutive and she got stuck sitting next to him. 𝐒𝐮𝐵𝐲 lounged back in his seat as other students filed in, and he glanced over, watching her take notes. So, does your sister have the same quirk as you, or is she still quirkless? 𝐒𝐮𝐵𝐲 suddenly asked. We both got our quirk at the same time when Mom died. It's the same, but I guess you could say there are some differences. She glanced over, frowning. Why do you care? I want to know how good you actually are. You obviously think you're good enough to take on this exam. I'm more than good enough, I'm getting into you. She boasted and gripped the pen in her hand. Mark my words, 𝐀𝐮𝐿. We'll see about that. He smirked and righted himself as the ceremony started. Practical exam changing into her sweats had been a challenge. The locker rooms they used were gender-specific, and since she didn't want to get found out, she ended up having to change in the middle of a room of naked boys. Luckily, she had the bodysuit on and just slipped the sweats over it, but she got some odd stares that had her instinctively wanting to cover her chest. She slammed the locker closed and hurried out before anyone could say anything to her. She joined the others in her group in front of exam area beta and had to take long, deep breaths to calm her nerves. Her fingers fidgeted and she ran them through the long part of her hair to keep them busy and from shaking. The written exam had been easy, but the practical exam was where she knew she'd struggle. She wasn't a natural fighter like Izuku was, she didn't have his brute strength and knowledge of battle strategy. All she had to go on was grace and instinct, and hoped that would be enough. Her eyes met with another girl, a cute brunette who offered her a shy smile before returning to her preparation. Izumi would have to ask her later where she'd gotten the cute tracksuit. You there? A voice suddenly spoke behind her and had Izumi grunting in annoyance. She glanced over her shoulder and saw a boy that was nearly a foot taller than her, athletically built, and had a proud, dignified stance. During the briefing he'd spoken up boldly asking questions, and had the nerve to call her out for muttering and being a distraction. Just great. Yes. Why did you not wear a school uniform? It is proper protocol to come to these entrance exams representing the school you come from. He asked her, his voice polite, but his eyes narrowed in disapproval. I don't have a school, I'm Dash. What makes you think a prestigious school like you will accept a delinquent dropout such as yourself? Say what? Izumi's temple throbbed in annoyance. She admitted the look she'd chosen did make her look a bit like the son of a yakuza, but that was no excuse for his blatant prejudice view. I'm not a delinquent, you Dash. Start. What are you waiting for? There's no countdown in real life. Izumi blinked and looked behind her as the student all started rushing through the gate. CRP. I'm already behind. She started running after them, and even as her legs moved she activated her quirk, remembering her grandfather's lessons. Any quirk is an extension of your body. It's a part of who you are, and you simply have to let it emerge from you. Once controlled, activating it can be as easy as breathing. She felt the power pulsate through her, electrifying against her skin and filling her with a rush of adrenaline. In one quick burst of speed she caught up to the other entrance, and surpassed them by darting into an alley and using the enclosed space to bounce up and onto the roof. She leapt now from building to building, her eyes searching for robots, and found the bulk of them clustered together in the center of the stage. She jumped off and came down with a crash on top of a three-pointer. All right, Izumi, she thought as the robots all turned to face her at once. Her eyes lit with challenge. You can do this. Staff viewing room Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 tapped his pawed fingers together as he watched the various screens. While they would all go over the tapes later and review the students individually, he preferred seeing things at first glance and getting a sense of those who made a point to stand out amongst the pack. The students would be given villain points, but in addition they were also analyzed for their various other skills such as information gathering, tactician, and overall combat power. A few already stood out to him, but he wanted to get the opinions and suggestions for him staff as well, and looked to his left. Well, All Might, you're the newest member here. What do you think of this CRP of students? They all have such amazing potential, but you can clearly see the fire more in certain individuals. Take that boy in Group Alpha. His combat power is beyond impressive, but it is his drive pushing him to exceed expectations. You can see it in his eyes, and the way he moves so confidently through the stage. All Might rubbed his chin. A bit frightening, actually. Agreed on both accounts. His eyes focus on the center screen. That one there in Group Beta. He pointed to the center viewing screen where Izumi's face appeared as she zipped out of the way of another robot and sent a shockwave through her fist to tear it apart. What about him? Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 rubbed his chin, narrowing his eyes on the candidate. He seems to be doing well, and like the other boy he's got immense spirit. What's his name? 𝐶EMENTOS flicked through the student roster and found a match in facial recognition. Izuku Midoriya, age 15. Midoriya, All Might gripped the armrest of his chair and couldn't keep his eyes off the center viewing screen. Inko, exam arena beta. How many points had she collected? 20. 30. Izumi had lost count, but just kept pushing her limits. Whatever ropt she could find she plowed through, and her limbs started to shake from the exertion. She stopped after plowing through a one-pointer and rubbed sweat from her brow and face, breathing. She was too flushed and sweating too much. Her vision was starting to blur and she was feeling pain and fatigue in every muscle of her body. I can't stop now. I gotta keep the... She screamed and brought her forearms up to block her face as massive amounts of debris came crashing around her. Her eyes flew up at the massive robot that suddenly appeared and she cursed. It was the Zero robot mentioned in the packet, the one that would go crazy in tight spaces. Present Mike had advised them all to avoid it, and she could see why. Turning on her heel, she started to make a run for it, but heard a cry of pain to her left. She squinted through the dust and saw the girl from the gate trapped under debris, her face pale and sickly, and her hands trying to push at the rock but unsuccessfully. Without thinking, she ran over and shoved the rock up. Are you okay? My leg, she whimpered and tried to stand, and Izumi crouched down, hefting her up piggy-bag style. Hold on, she cursed loudly as the robot got closer, and she made a run for it. The robot ate up ground faster than she could distance them, and with a jerk of its mechanical arms sent more debris flying, nearly crushing them. Hang on, Izumi told the girl, and powered up one for all, leaping on top of the rubble and jumping a great distance. She heard screams and cries of other entrants as they tried to make a run for it. This was futile. If that robot wasn't stopped, someone was gonna get hurt. She looked around and spotted the guy who'd lectured her at the entrance staring at the robot in question, a look of debate on his face whether to stand against it or run. Hey! She shouted at him to get his attention, and she carried Izuku over to him. Take her. What? 𝐻𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stared at the supposed delinquent. What are you dash? Get as much distance from this thing as you possibly can. I'm gonna stop it in its tracks. Izumi turned to face the robot. Are you crazy? That thing is massive, and you get no point value out of it. Who gives a damn about points? This thing is gonna end up killing someone if we don't stop it. She rushed forward, leaping back over the rubble and jumping along the robot's body. What's he talking about? This is a test, not a... His eyes suddenly narrowed as he looked down at the girl he held up. Test, of course. His eyes flew up, seeing Izumi fly up and up. Amazing, how did he know? Izumi didn't know anything, except she needed to keep people from getting hurt. She leapt and jumped but couldn't get higher than its knees without its arms blocking her path. Obviously her safe mode wasn't going to cut it. If she was gonna stop this thing, she couldn't hold back. She landed back on the ground, then immediately pushed the maximum power into her legs and flew sky high, quickly bypassing its waving arms and up to its head. One for All is empowered by emotions. The more you feel, the stronger your will becomes, and the stronger the will, the more power you can unleash. This one's for you, Izuku. 100% smash. Izumi let her fist fly, felt the bones in her hand and forearm break on impact. The robot's head jerked back, the middle of its sensors pushed in and exploding until its body just crumbled like the debris. She smiled at first watching it crumble, but then she felt the pain and immediately paled. She tried to focus her energy, but her legs and arm were broken. She punched the air with her good arm so her body jerked to the side. She made a grab for the roof of the building and barely caught herself on it. She winced and struggled, trying to pull herself up. Her other limbs were useless and she was just dead weight. She glanced down at the city below and cursed again, trying to find the strength to pull herself up. The concrete crumbled from the damage the robot had inflicted, and Izumi let out a gasp as she fell to the ground. She twirled her body in mid-air, seeing the concrete come up fast, and she pulled back her arm in an attempt to unleash air to cushion her fall, then felt the smack against her cheek. A force levitated her a few feet off the ground before letting her fall safely. Wincing, she rolled to her side and saw the girl from before, laying atop a rock she'd levitated to get to her. Thanks, she said with a weak smile, which the girl returned. 𝐶𝐿𝐿𝐴 and welcome, feed. The girl returned before losing her cookies. The sight of it had Izumi laughing. The buzzer for the ending of the exam went off, and Izumi could only smile and hope what she'd done was enough. Later, after Recovery Girl had fixed her wounds, Izumi grabbed her gear from the locker and raced out without changing. She wanted to avoid Bakugo completely and thought it best to change outside of campus. She found a bathroom at the train station and slipped off the sweaty body shaper, returning to her girl form. She sighed with immense relief and promised herself she'd never complain about wearing a BR again. She tugged on fresh jeans, t-shirt, and hoodie, and slipped a baseball cap over her hair to complete the look. Much better, she decided, and made her way to the ticket booth to pay for her ride home. It was then she saw the flower cart just outside the train station. The elderly gentleman in charge was handing a pretty bouquet of red roses to a sharply dressed gentleman who nodded his head in approval before paying and walking off. Her mother had always loved roses. Deciding she had enough time to make a stop, she paid for a bouquet of white roses and took a local train to the old neighborhood. Where the old apartment complex had been was nothing but an empty lot. Families and friends of the other victims had littered the front stoop with candles, flowers, signs, and even boxed food in commemoration to their loved ones. Maybe I should have gone to the gravesite instead, but I felt I should come here. She knelt down, lifting up a picture of an elderly couple she'd known from her childhood. So many memories haunt this place. I hope you all have found peace. A tear slipped down her cheek. Mama, I miss you. Deku. For crying out loud, she thought with a snarl, could 𝐻 not get 5 minutes of quiet with him around? Izumi turned her cold stare to 𝐾𝐿, who was jogging up the hill to meet her. Wrong twin, 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. She turned sideways to accent her bios. Nice try though. 𝐾𝐿 paused in mid-stride and narrowed his eyes. Izumi. Yeesh, you and your brother look scary alike from the back. Gee, what a way to make me feel so feminine and attractive. She fluttered her eyelashes in a mock tease, then rolled them exaggeratedly. If you're looking for my brother, he's not here. Where is he then? I saw him at the 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 exam and then he just disappeared. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I didn't expect to see you here. I go where my brother goes most of the time. He's probably at the train station waiting for me. She set her mother's roses down beside the picture of the elderly couple and stood up. If you'll excuse me, I'll walk you back. No thanks. She shoved her arm out for him to keep his distance. I'm a big girl, I can find my own way back. You ever stop to think that maybe I just feel like walking with you? He turned and followed her, making her grit her teeth. Well, did you ever think that maybe I don't want your company? She snapped back. Too dim and bad, you're getting it? He retorted with a snarl. What do you want, 𝐾𝐿? She turned to face him with an exasperated sigh. If you're just coming so you can razz my brother, then you can just turn back around and walk home, because I won't let you. Who says I'm gonna razz him? 𝐾𝐿 sneered at her. Maybe I just want to talk to him. Since when? All you've ever done since you've gotten your quirk is make Izuku feel inferior to you, and he's not. You've belittled him, beaten him, and called him quirkless, worthless, Deku for as long as I can remember. So don't talk as if you've suddenly had a change of heart. People changed, you did. He snagged her hat off her head, making her gasp and snag for it. You idolize your nerd of a brother so much you're even copying his hairstyle. Diamine, get lost, JRK. She snagged her hat, but he gripped her by the sweatshirt. Make me tomboy. He pulled her up to her toes, his head bending down, lips just inches from hers. Izumi stood breathless a moment, and then could only react. Her hair floated and flared as he quirk activated, and her fist came up, punching him across the face. His head jerked back and he toppled sideways to his knees, rubbing his red cheek. Eee, that hurt. He cursed and shook the daze out of his head. Yeah, well, you deserve, you arrogant butt. Izumi glared, rubbing the back of her palm over her lips, feeling a bit revolted at even being the slightest bit tempted to kiss him. Be thankful I only used 5% of my power. He glanced up from under his bangs, eyeing her body that continued to glow from her quirk. So, this is what it looks like. Deku wouldn't show off his. He's not an arrogant boaster like you are. He only uses his power to help people, not to show off. She snarled at him. If given the opportunity, my brother would kick your butt. Oh, is that so? 𝐾𝐿 laughed, flashing his teeth in a sinister grin. If that's the case, I look forward to seeing him in school, if he makes it, of course. Don't worry, he did, with flying colors. She shouted and finally stomped off, muttering under her breath. I made sure of it. Izumi peeled an apple as she sat next to Izuku's bed. He'd finally been okayed to leave the hospital, but was still on mandatory bed rest and physical therapy. Izumi was like a mother hen, cooking, cleaning, and seeing to all of Izuku's needs. But he knew her too well. Izumi was hiding something from him, and hiding it by spoiling him. What's on your mind, Izumi? He offered a small smile when her hand paused. You've been real anxious for the last few days. Is there something on your mind? No, not really. I'm just waiting for you to get better is all. Well, you'll be waiting for a while. Izuku frowned and looked down at his left hand. Doctor says I did permanent damage to it. What? She dropped the apple and set the knife down to get to her feet. Grandpa didn't say anything about that to me when he brought you home. He didn't want to worry you. It's nothing majorly serious, it's just I've got to be careful not to exceed my limits. Taking on that villain instead of running for help was a stupid mistake, and one that's gonna show. He looked down at his hand, flexing the fingers a little. I'll be a little scarred and deformed, but I can still use my fist as a fist. That's good at least. When you go to school, you'll still be able to fight normally. She smiled at him and flexed her own fist. You'll be fully healed by the time the new school year starts up, then everyone in you will see what an amazing person you are, Izuku. Izuku sighed and lay back on his pillows. You're still insisting they'll let me take the test? Not exactly, she rubbed her nervous palms together. I'm saying you already took the test. Huh? Izuku blinked in confusion. No, I didn't. I've been in the hospital the whole time, remember? And She pulled off the bandana she'd been wearing to show off her short hair and had him gawking. Went to you and took the test for you. We'll get the results any day now. You did what? Izuku shot up in bed, ignoring the pain in his side and arm. At the sound of his grandson's shouts, 𝐴𝐻𝐼 looked up at the ceiling of his home with a scowl. He wondered what those two were talking about that had Izuku all riled up. Either way, he'd collect the mail and then go find out for himself. He picked up the pile of letters on the floor, and his brow lifted when he saw the thick envelope from you. What's this? Izumi fretted as Izuku climbed out of bed and started tossing clothes on. Izuku, what are you doing? Get back in bed. No. We're going down there so you can explain yourself to the principal. Izuku, the acceptance letters are already on the way out. I self-checked the written exam afterwards and I got a near-perfect score, and I did fairly well in the practical portion. I know you'll make it. I didn't make it, you did. Izuku shouted at her. I know your intentions were good, Izumi, and I know you were just trying to help me out, but going down there and faking all this is the stupidest thing you've ever done. Izumi's eyes widened and went watery. Izuku. Even if they didn't find out, even if I got accepted, none of it would mean anything because I didn't do it myself. He put a hand to his chest. The scores aren't mine, they're yours, and if you do get accepted, then you should have signed up for the test yourself. I'd be much happier knowing you were going than taking your hard work and claiming it as my own. Izuku. Tears fell now and she bat them away. I'm sorry, I didn't want to see you give up. I wasn't giving up. Yeah, I was depressed, but I haven't given up on being a hero. There are plenty of other schools I could go to, and even then I could put in for a transfer to you. Later. You don't want to go later, you want to go now. I could see it on your face. You were so angry and upset at yourself. I just wanted to make you happy. She wiped her tears. I did it for you. I want you to go to you. You both are going. 𝐻𝐼 stood at the doorway holding the letter from you. The contents opened and 𝐻𝐼's eyes looking angry. This is a letter from Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 at you. And he wants you both to go down to his office for a private meeting. Whatever it is you two have done, you'd best prepare yourselves for the consequences of it. High school, 𝐒𝐮𝐬's office. Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was nothing like what Izumi had imagined him to be. The small mouse-like dog sat behind a desk that was more catered to a man of gargantuan size. But somehow he still managed to look intimidating. The moment they'd walked in, and 𝐒𝐮𝐬 welcomed him in his squeaky voice, Izuku had confessed everything. He raised his good hand and forced his sister's head in a proper bow. That's the whole story, Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬. We're both sorry to have caused you trouble. Please, Izumi added on, letting her head hang low. Don't punish my brother for this, Principal 𝐒𝐮𝐬. It was all my idea. He wanted to get into you so badly and I wanted to help him. Please forgive me for my naivety. This is troubling. He finally spoke, tapping his pawed fingers together. I thank you both for coming forward with the truth. However, I called you here because I was already aware of the situation. I knew it was not Izuku who truly took the test. Izumi's head shot up and she went upright. How? Our sources told us of your brother's hospitalization and the fact he had an identical twin sister. After reviewing the tapes, we came to the conclusion that you were not the brother, but the sister. I'm sorry, she bowed her head again, ashamed. I'm so sorry. She wanted to weep but held it in. What's more troubling is what am I to do with the student who not only passed, but scored the highest in both the written and practical exam? Principal 𝐻𝐿𝐻 couldn't help but smile when shock registered on both twins' faces. Izumi pointed to herself. You're talking about me. That doesn't make any sense. I only scored like 30 or so villain points, and I know for a fact there was at least one student with a higher score than that. You're correct, you only scored 32 villain points, but adding your rescue points in dash, he started and had Izumi mumbling in thought. Rescue points. She thought about it then gasped. That girl? You mean I scored points for saving that girl from the Zero robot? Exactly. The principal stood up on his desk and walked to the edge to get a closer look at the twins. You not only saved her, but you prioritized helping others over adding to your point value. That kind of selfless act is exactly the kind of thinking a hero should have, and deserves its own form of score. Each act is scored by a panel of judges, and your total rescue points came out to 60, which makes your overall total of it's one of the highest accumulated scores we've ever had here at you. Amazing. Izuku's eyes glittered with pride and he pat Izumi's back smiling. That's seriously amazing, Izumi. Yeah, tears fell freely as the shock gave way to sadness and she rubbed them away. I wish it counted for something. As do I, Izumi. I hate to waste such a talent. 𝐻𝐿𝐻 continued and sat at the edge of his desk. So tell me something. Have either of you heard of the discreet hero, Anonymous? Yes, sir. Izuku answered. He was said to be an unknown hero, whose identity was so secret not even the police truly knew who he was. The only proof he even existed were the notes and symbols delivered with the villains. You sure know your hero facts, Izuku. I'm impressed. He smiled and rubbed his chin. Just as he thought, the brother reflected on the sister. Both were impressive young adults. Because of his discretion, he has accumulated one of the largest quantities of villain captures to date, even more so than All Might himself. It is discretion itself that is his weapon against crime, for if no one is aware of his true identity, then no one can use that against him. For a true hero isn't in it for the money, glory, or fame. A boisterous voice spoke outside the door, and the twin doors opened to reveal All Might. He strutted in, all grin and business with his glittering smile and royal blue costume. Izuku was fanboying immediately, ignoring his wounds to turn around and ogle at the mighty superhero. All Might. It's really him. All Might came to stand next to 𝐻𝐿𝐻 and crossed his arms. He stared at the two twins, his heart swarming with emotion. They both looked so much like 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Principal 𝐻𝐻𝐻 and I are the only ones here at you. Aware of your situation, young Midoriya. We wanted to keep it discreet until we could find out your true motives, particularly you, Izumi. My motives? Izumi blinked, a little star struck herself. Yes, we've had many students with powerful drive and determination. Young Bakugo, for instance, had a powerful drive, and while he performed well, he lacks the kindness and selflessness that you possess. You outscored him because of those qualities, which is what a true hero should possess. How can a school made for training heroes not accept someone like that? Izumi's eyes filled again, joy and guilt overwhelming her, and she bowed her head in shame. Thank you, but I can't accept. It's not right. It's true I want to be a hero, and I'd love to go to you. But it's my brother who deserves this. This is what he's always wanted. He dreams of dash. Do it, Izumi. Izuku interrupted her and gripped her shoulder with his good hand. She looked up at him, the tears spilling. Go to you, for both of us. Izuku, she sobbed and wiped her tears. I can't go to you. Without you. You won't have to. Because I'm accepting you both. Principal 𝐻𝐻𝐻 clarified and picked up a cup of tea from his desk and sipped as the two gave him wide-eyed stares again. Granted, I'm bending the rules to accommodate you, but as I said before, I hate to waste such an amazing talent. So I'm going to propose a solution that is a bit unorthodox, but if we pull it off, both of you will be able to attend you together, providing Izuku proves himself. Really? Izumi smiled and gripped her brother's hand. We can go together. Yes. And here's how it's going to work. Izumi, Since you're the one who actually took and passed the hero test, you'll be put into the hero course, but you'll remain posing as your brother. Both twins reacted with wild expression that had All Might stifling a laugh. They were too much alike, and it was no wonder Izumi was able to pull off looking like Izuku. Izuku is the one that registered to take the hero course, so you will be taking the classes in his stead. In the meantime, you'll be enlisted in our independent study program, which Izuku will be taking in your stead since he's unable to properly take hero classes in his current condition. So, Izumi tried to wrap her brain around this. Basically, I just have to act like my brother until his wounds are fully healed. In a sense, but remember what I said, he has to prove himself. Nizu sipped his tea again. 2 months after the first day of school, the 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐴 Sports Festival will take place. It will be on that day the two of you will perform as yourselves and combat with the other students for the top prize. If you perform well as Izuku and keep up your grades in the independent study course, I will consider that performance as your true test, and you can then participate in the hero courses as yourself, rather than your sister. Izumi, you in turn will have to remain diligent. If you perform well, I will make your transcripts official and have you transferred into the hero course with your brother. What happens if we perform badly? Izumi wanted to know. In your case, Izuku, you will remain in independent study, or be transferred to a different course such as generals or business. In your case, Izumi, without a passing performance you'll be expelled. Both of them went blue in the face. The sports festival would determine both of their fates. They'd have to give it their all so neither of them would get left behind. I have a few questions if you don't mind. The first is, I know he's the #1 hero and all, but why are you here, All Might? That's because starting this year I'll be the newest teacher at 𝐻𝐿 Academy. And as such I'll be in charge of hero basic training. And he looked at Izuku. Independent study? Are you serious? Izuku's eyes went brilliant again. You're gonna teach me personally? That's right, he gave a thumbs up. 2 months is more than enough time for your wounds to heal. Whatever time we've left will be spent training you up for the sports festival. Since Izumi will be receiving proper training, it's only fair you get the same. Thank you so much. Izuku bowed over and over, Izumi fretting as his bandages start to come undone. It's a real honor. The second question I have. Izumi started as she rebandaged her brother while he geeked out. As much as I appreciate what you're doing for us, is it really all right for you to be going to such lengths to accommodate my brother and I? As I said before, I hate wasting talent. You will be properly punished for breaking the rules. For starters, you will both be under close surveillance. We're going to set you both up in the co-ed dormitories right here on campus, and you'll be under house arrest until the sports festival. Which means you cannot leave school grounds without permission or accompaniment with a teacher. Co-ed dorms. So we will be living with other students. Won't that make things a little weird and difficult considering our situation? Izuku asked. Not as much as you think. The two of you will have adjoining rooms, and since you're taking independent studies for your sister, you won't have to leave there much. I must warn you, Izumi, you must keep your identity a secret until the sports festival. If you're found out by your classmates, then the arrangement is off and you'll both be expelled. Izumi paled but nodded. This wasn't how she expected her brother to get into you. But if it meant her brother could fulfill his dream, she didn't mind pretending to be a boy just a bit longer. Torino House, they both received a long lecture from Grandpa Torino when they returned home. Izumi in particular was grounded from leaving the house until school started. She did her best to sweeten him up some by making him his favorite foods, but the old man held a grudge. As they sat down to dinner, Izumi took her place at the stove, adding seasoning to some curry, and glanced back when the doorbell rang. Now who could that be? Don't know. Maybe someone got lost. Izuku stood up and hobbled to the door. When it opened, he was back in full geek mode. I'm here. With your school packets. All Might grinned and held out 2 boxes with their school papers, uniforms, and dorm room information. All Might. Toshinori. Torino murmured, and thought things were slowly coming together in his mind why his 2 numbskull grandkids were welcomed to the school even after the stunt they pulled. Thank you for bringing them. Would you like to come inside? We're about to have dinner. Izumi made lots. Izuku offered as All Might stepped in and set the boxes by the door. I'd love to, if it's no trouble, 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴. He swallowed hard and rubbed his hands together nervously. He was in a suit now rather than his costume, looking professional but stiff. I have no problem with it. Izumi, set another place at the table. He tapped his cane and Izumi quickly pulled up another chair and bowl for All Might. Though his massive body crowded it, he sat down gingerly and eyed the splendor. It smells delicious. You must be quite the cook, young Izumi. Your talents continue to grow. Don't praise her, she's supposed to be in trouble. 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴 scowled in Izumi's direction and had All Might tensing up. Of course what she did was wrong, but she had good intentions. He started to explain, then was quickly silenced by the glare from 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴. Clearing his throat, he adjusted his tie nervously. So, are you two looking forward to your first day of school? I know I am, Izuku said immediately. Even if it's just the independent study program, I've always wanted to go to you. Hey, it's the same high school you graduated from, isn't it? Yes, back then things weren't so flashy, but the basics have always remained the same. I only became a teacher this year, so it may take some time for me to get used to it. He explained and sighed pleasantly when Izumi set curry and rice in front of him. Thank you for the food. It was nice of you to deliver our boxes yourselves, All Might. Since the principal and I are the only ones aware of your situation, it was a necessary precaution on our part. You have 2 uniforms in there, by the way, Izumi, 1 male, 1 female. Once you finish the 2 months, you'll be transformed into a young woman again. I'm only posing as a boy, All Might. I'm not actually turning into one. She said a bit grumpily. Izumi's always been a tomboy, 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴 said. The day I met her I thought she was a quiet one, but boy was I mistaken. He laughed. Hey, I can be quiet. Izumi shoved a spoonful in her mouth and chewed thoroughly. I just prefer to speak my mind. You've got a feisty spirit, Izumi. I like that in a young hero. What about you, Izuku? Unfortunately, Izuku's the quiet one. Izumi smirked at her brother watching him play with his food. He was teased a lot when we were kids, and it made him a bit of a pacifist. But ever since we got our quirks, he's been building confidence and spirit. He'll make you proud, All Might, just wait and see. Izumi boasted for her brother, smiling brightly at him and making him flush. Thanks, Izumi. The bond you two have is wonderful. All Might dabbed a tear from his eyes. It's truly appealing to see. The day will come when you grow into fine young heroes, and you'll make your mark on the world. I cannot wait for that day. 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴 eyed All Might thoughtfully throughout the meal. Once it was finished, All Might stood and said his goodbyes. But 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴 followed him out, making sure to close the door so they weren't heard or followed. 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴. It's been some time since I've gone by that name. All Might said with his back to 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴. 15 years. To protect those that you loved, you hid away your true self and became a full-time hero. 𝐴𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴 understood your reasoning. But the children never got to know it. He turned around eyeing his old teacher and friend. You've taken good care of them over these years. But it is time I took personal interest. I can only protect them for so long. Would they have taken up normal careers, I could have been content watching afar. When will you tell them the truth? If both of them succeed in the sports festival and begin to mold themselves into full-fledged heroes, I will reward them by telling them everything. About their quirk, about their future, and about their father. 𝐻𝐼𝐼𝐴 nodded in approval and tapped his cane once. I'll look forward to that day. A few days later, why do I get the feeling that this whole secret identity thing is the real test and not the sports festival? Izumi sighed and lounged on the top of her brother's bed as he gathered his belongings. It was a week before school would start and their rooms were stripped down to the bare minimums. You remember what the principal said about using discretion as a weapon? I think he wants us to use the fact we're twins with the same quirk to our advantage. It's a good strategy. True. But I don't think he quite understands what posing as a boy will require. I'll have to use the same changing faculties, the same bathrooms, the same showers. Her face went green. I already saw more of Bakugo than I was comfortable with. Izuku's hand flinched and his face went blue. He hung his head as depression crept in some. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's going to be there. Guess you'll see him every day. The way his voice sounded had her raising an eyebrow. She sat up and walked around to kneel in front of him. Why does it sound like you're disappointed? She scowled when he averted her gaze. You've idolized him since we were kids, and you continue to call him 𝐀𝐮. Why is that? No reason really. He fumbled with one of his All Might figurines and wrapped it in paper before setting it in a box. Izumi shoved the box away and scooted all the way so they were eye to eye. I don't get it, why are you even friends with him? All he ever does is criticize and belittle you. It's all he's ever done. That's not entirely true, he clenched his bandaged fist. You just don't see what I see in him. All I see is a stuck-up JRK. Izumi eyed him suspiciously. His nervous expression and fidgeting fingers were a clear sign of his discomfort with the subject. Why are you always defending him? No matter how mean he is to you, the things he says and does to you, you always defend him. Why? You wouldn't understand. He muttered under his breath, his eyes hiding under his long bangs as his head bowed forward. What wouldn't I understand? I'm your sister, your twin. What could it possibly be that you'd have to hide it from me? I love him, all right. Izuku snapped it out and Izumi's eyes widened at the tearful confession. He completely slumped backward. His bandaged fingers curled in his hair and his legs drew up to his chest to curl up for comfort. I told you, you wouldn't understand. You're right. I don't. She slumped back as well. I don't understand what you see in him. His personality is twisted, I won't deny that. He's always angry, always abrasive, but I can still see the good things. The same qualities that made me like him when we were kids. He laughed a bit and sniffled. Determined, goal-oriented, and he never gives up no matter what obstacles he faces. He looked up at his sister now, seeing a frowning, thoughtful expression on her face. He actually reminds me of you, sometimes. In what way? Izumi snapped and growled. Her eyebrow twitched and her temple throbbed. Izuku wasn't sure whether to cower or to laugh at her expression. In the good ways. You both fight hard for what you believe in. You both look to better yourselves, but have a strong sense of pride. You can both be kind, but more often you like to lecture and show off your temper. Izumi's brow continued to twitch in irritation. I'm not a bully like he is. You're right, 𝐀𝐮 can be a bit of a bully. But pay close attention to his actions. They're not as black and white as you make them out to be. He smiled and dashed away his own tears. I'm sure if you did that you'd see all the good qualities in him that I do. I doubt it. She huffed then sighed heavily. Still, I can't believe I've lived with you all this time and I didn't know you were gay. Izuku went a bit green in the face. Just for 𝐀𝐮. If I imagine myself with any other guy I feel sick. Maybe you're just a MSCST to match his sadistic personality. Either way, Izuku, this doesn't bode well for you. She started prepping another box and packing for him. She didn't notice her brother's smile go sad and a bit bitter. Yeah, I know. Especially since, Izuku thought to himself. The twin 𝐀𝐮 had feelings for, wasn't him. She's the man in joy. Izumi could already tell the first day of school was going to be difficult. From the moment her and Izuku moved into the on-campus dorms, nerves and tension were on an all-time high. They had an entire floor to themselves, but she didn't expect that to last. Sooner or later this place would be crawling with students, and the game of mistaken identity would begin. To keep up appearances, Izuku got his haircut the same as Izumi, a change he had to get used to. On top of that, the two had to figure out together what his costume would look like, and what features to add. The end product wasn't particularly her style, but she wouldn't be wearing it for very long. She had plans for her own costume, one that would show the differences between them if and when the time came. What the hell did I get myself into? She muttered under her breath and adjusted the school uniform. Izuku locked himself up in his room with the homework packets All Might had shoved at him, leaving her to her own designs. The fact he was content staying in his room for hours at a time just showed another angle to how her and her brother differed. They may look alike, but people were bound to realize the differences once Izuku started school as himself. I better avoid social interaction for the time being. Particularly, she added silently with a grim face, if 𝐒𝐿𝐴 was around. She'd riled up during the exam and felt comfortable doing so because she hadn't expected to see much of him afterward. Now that they were going to the same school, the two of them were bound to run into each other, and that didn't bode well for herself or Izuku. If she said or did the wrong thing, 𝐒𝐿𝐴 would most certainly notice. Maybe I'll get lucky and he's not in my class. She mumbled and pulled back the door to class 1A. Don't put your foot on the desk. Ha! Immediately her hopes were crushed when 𝐒𝐿𝐴's loud, obnoxious voice mixed with the authoritative one of 𝗀𝐻𝐻𝐸. Didn't that just figure? Her two least favorite people were in her class, and 𝐒𝐿𝐴 just happened to be seated directly next to hers. Great, she closed the door behind her quietly, just great. Just what high school did you graduate from, you side character? 𝐒𝐿𝐴 laughed. I attended semi-private academy, my name is 𝗀𝐻𝐻𝐸. Ida adjusted his glasses and frowned in disapproval of 𝐒𝐿𝐴's behavior. A private school, so you're some kind of elite. Looks like I'll have fun crushing you. 𝐒𝐿𝐴 grinned at him, making Ida shudder back. Crushing. Should an aspiring hero really be saying those words? Teeth. 𝐒𝐿𝐴 turned up his nose, then glanced over at the door where Izumi stood, hands in pockets, her eyes narrowed on the two of them. Instantly his grin spread and his eyes went deadly. Well, if it isn't Mr. Top Score, guess your sister wasn't talking out of her, but after all. Hello, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Izumi muttered as she walked past a stunned Ida to set her bag down on her desk. The books hit the floor when 𝐒𝐿𝐴 kicked the desk against the wall and Izumi's temple throbbed with annoyance. Don't provoke him, don't aggravate him. You know I went looking for you after the exam, and you just up and disappeared. I figured you'd bombed so bad you didn't want to show your sorry face. He laughed and stood up so they were toe to toe. He bent his head down, trying to get her to look at him. Imagine my surprise when I found out you not only beat me, but also got top marks. You really are a 𝐵 nerd, Deku. Seriously. Izumi's teeth clenched. What the hell was so attractive about this? Her brother was a goddamn idiot. B said all you want, but I gave you fair warning at the exam not to mess with me. She turned her eyes on him finally, fight and aggravation lighting in them. So back off. Don't mess with you. How about you not mess with me? You've been holding back, but don't think that just because you scored the highest in the exam means you're better than me. I'll 𝐵 kill you. You're right, she crossed her arms. You could easily beat me if you'd stop being a PP, say what? 𝐒𝐿𝐴 growled, but Ida moved between them. Now, no more arguing. We're all classmates. He moved Izumi over a step so he was between her and 𝐒𝐿𝐴, then bowed his head. I owe you an apology, my name is 𝗀𝐻𝐻𝐸. I know, I heard your introduction earlier. She heard the snap in her own voice, and knew Izuku wouldn't sound anything like that. She sighed heavily, and glanced around the classroom. All eyes were on them. So much for avoiding social interaction. She offered a strained smile. I'm Izumi Midoriya, it's nice to meet you. Midoriya-kun, you were inspiring during the practical exam. You figured out how the test would be scored and I had to admit, but your dash, I didn't and I'm not. Izumi correctly quickly and felt annoyance and irritation bubbling. She tried desperately to hold onto the reins of her temper, but her mouth wouldn't stop moving. People were getting hurt, and all anyone was doing was running away. That isn't what a hero should do when others are in danger. Curly head. Achiko broke the tense moment when she walked into the classroom. She jogged in to join the conversation. I knew you'd get in, that punch of yours was amazing. The girl was like a breath of fresh air. Izumi smiled, unable to help it. Thanks, and thanks again for the save. She glanced at 𝐒𝐿𝐴, who was staring intensely with a firm glare. Frustrated, Izumi pointed at Achiko, surprising her. It's because of her that I scored higher than both of you. The two of you outperformed me when it came to intense combat power and strategy, but when I saw her get hurt I didn't think, I didn't plan, I just reacted. It doesn't make me better than you, so if you want the top spot so badly, 𝐒𝐿𝐴, then take it. She motioned her hand out as if showing off a prize. Because I know where my priorities as a hero lie. Well said, Momo Yaoyorozu murmured from the back of the class and glanced over to her right at Shoto Todoroki. The two of them were the top students to make it through recommendations, and they were already aware of some of what the other could do. Don't you think so, Todoroki-san? Ah, Shoto nodded, his eyes intent on Izumi even as she took her seat. It'll be interesting to see if he's got bite to go with that bark. He commented and raised a brow when he saw her pull out a notebook and start scribbling in it. Who the hell takes notes before a class? That's enough chit-chat. Aizawa, the homeroom teacher, spoke from the doorway. He looked groggy and disheveled, and nothing like your typical teacher. After introducing himself, he pulled out the uniforms and tossed them at the class. Let's jump right in, put these on and meet me on the field. Outfield. It was only the first day and already Izumi was forced to change in the same locker room as the boys. So she averted her eyes, keeping them ahead on her locker or down on the floor. Thanks to Mavis' modifications to the body shaper, its short sleeve design was just right for fitting underneath the sports uniform. Still, she felt super uncomfortable and quickly changed and exited the locker room. Bakugo paused, his shirt halfway on as he watched Izumi walk out. His lips scowling deep. Something's up with you, Deku, and I'm gonna find out what. He yanked on the shirt and slammed his locker closed. Once outside, it was announced they would go through a quirk assessment test. No opening ceremony, no orientation. It was outside the box, which was the appeal of you. The school itself followed no guidelines and the teachers ran their classrooms as they saw fit. For Shota Aizawa, the first day was figuring out if his lot had any true potential to become heroes. Those with no potential he showed no mercy to and expelled. Midoriya. Aizawa called out and had her tensing up. Her eyes lifted up and she grunted, wondering why she kept getting pushed into the limelight. You were top score in the entrance exam. What was your highest reading for the softball throw in middle school? I don't know, my sister and I were homeschooled. She crossed her arms, people whispering around her, and Aizawa raised his brow. Sighing, she tapped an impatient finger along her bicep, thinking about the last time she took an assessment test. If I had to guess, I'd say around 50 to 60 meters. Sounds about right for a boy your size. Come then, try it with your quirk. He motioned her over and put her in the circle. He placed the ball in her hand and Izumi stared at it thoughtfully. Izuku had more power than she did, but she wasn't a weakling. She just had to use a full cowl at the highest percentage without hurting herself. She glanced to her right, seeing everyone watching her, and decided, screw it. Since she was here, she may as well show everyone what she could do. She wound up, her body electrifying with her quirk, hair floating, and muscles bunching. She threw the ball, screaming out a roar as she let it fly. Bakugo's eyebrows rose up and his fingers tightened to fists in his briefs pockets. He'd seen the quirk before when Izumi had punched him, and watching Deku let loose was almost identical. The two really did have the same quirk. Know your own maximum first. Aizawa took a look at the reading and gave a nod of approval. The kid may be small, but he had talent. That is the most rational way to form a foundation as a hero. He held up the number showing 750 meters. The class all shouted in awe. Whoa, you're serious? Kaminari Denki muttered under his breath. That's insane. We can use our quirks as much as we want. Shiro Hanta said, fully pumped up. The hero course is awesome. Awesome, Izumi agreed, flexing her fingers as she joined the group again, but difficult. She felt the twinges from using her quirk and knew she'd have to pace herself and try not to stress her muscles, or she'd just wind up breaking them again like she didn't against the 𝗂𝐴. Aizawa had planned to announce that he'd expel the one who came in last, but seeing Midoriya's quirk had changed his mind. Despite having received the top score, his expectations had been low because he had also heard the kid had broken both legs and an arm in the process. Someone who got hurt using their quirk had zero potential, but watching the quirk in action, he could see the kid had control. His eyes traveled over the others. He'd make up his mind whether or not to expel someone depending on how the results came out. Those without potential didn't need to be a hero. Deku. Bakugo stepped up to the starting line with Izumi next to him. Don't hold back in these tests. I'm going to beat every one of your scores while you're at your best. This isn't a contest, but fine. Caution forgotten, Izumi let her lips slowly curved in challenge. We'll see who comes out on top, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. On your mark. They bowed down into starting position. Get set. Izumi's back arched up, the line of her body feminine and elegant even with the shaper doing its job. Bakugo's eyes glanced only briefly at her, watching as light traveled from her head to toe. He had an uncomfortable moment of arousal, and that 1 second of distraction cost him. For as soon as the signal went off, Izumi blasted forward ahead of him. He cursed and launched himself forward with an explosion, quickly catching up and matching pace as he let his hands explode behind him like jetpacks. 3:95. 4:05. The robot recorded as Izumi pulled ahead by milliseconds. She breathed and turned around, smirking back at a cursing Bakugo. What was that about beating me? She ducked a blast, snickering as Bakugo chased her around. Don't get cocky, you little bastard. Is it just me? Kirishima watched the two run around. Or does Midoriya and Bakugo have a weird relationship? It's not just you. I can't tell if they're on good terms or bad terms. Kaminari agreed, rubbing the back of his head. A rivalry between men, Izuku announced. One always trying to outdo the other. Both striving for the top. It's a never-ending battle. She touched her heart, making her words feel more poetic. That's so manly. Kirishima pumped his fist, grinning ear to ear. Alright, it's time to get serious. The rivalry between Bakugo and Midoriya spurred on the rest of the class and lit a fire in them. As the two duked it out head-to-head in each category, the others pushed their quirks to the maximum just to keep up. Todoroki wiped sweat from his brow as they finished the long-distance run and glanced over at the rivals in question. The more they competed, closer they seemed to get. Though they argued, the two butted heads in a way that was like friends battling in a game. It confused and interested him. Midoriya interested him. He wasn't entirely sure why, but the more he watched him, the more intrigued he became. The guy's methods and techniques were interesting and inspiring. He could see his classmates getting revved up and felt his own competitive spirit rise in reaction. When others teamed up to do the toe touches and sit-ups, he waved a hand, motioning Izuku aside. I'll spot you, Midoriya. He knelt down as Izumi took her place. Alright. Todoroki, isn't it? She sat and got into position. Yes. He motioned her to start, and Izumi closed her eyes, breathing as her quirk flowed out, and she sat up in a slow and steady pace. Your quirk is interesting. How exactly does it work? She breathed and spoke between sit-ups. An MMPH enhancer. It amplifies my body's natural abilities. The stronger I am, the stronger my quirk is. I see. So the wind from your ball toss was just the shockwave of your speed and strength increasing. His grip tightened a little, and his brow rose when felt the slender skin of her calf. Wow, what? She paused mid-sit-up and looked him in the eyes. Because she was sitting up, their faces were extremely close. She felt the blush creep up her cheeks when his fingers stroked up the calf, but his eyes remained on hers. You've got really soft skin. It's almost like dash. She lay back and started sitting up faster and faster. Stop getting distracted and keep count. Baka. Right? He adjusted his grip over her breathed leg, his lips twitching and wanting to smile. Midoriya definitely intrigued him. Assessment results. You gotta be kidding me. Bakugo and Izumi said aloud together as they looked at their results. The two of them had scored exactly the same, and had tied at third place behind Yaoyorozu and Todoroki. Well, it's not all that surprising considering those two got in on recommendations. Izuku pat Izumi's back. Don't worry about it, you still did awesome. It's amazing you and Bakugo got the same exact score. Amazing. Try frustrating. I wanted to shut him the hell up. She muttered under her breath and rolled her tense shoulders. She glanced around at the students, then movement caught her eyes. She tensed up and went blue when she saw All Might and her brother peering around the corner. Izuku was covered up, his hair under a bandana, thick glasses on his face and a hospital mask over his. Seriously? Something wrong, Midoriya? Todoroki asked, placing a hand on her shoulder and making her tense up. No, nothing, gotta go. She quickly ran off towards the corner, her temper raging, and she could hear her brother squeak in surprise as she grabbed him by the face and shoved him back before anyone could see them. Are the two of you insane? What the hell are you doing here? What if someone sees you? Sorry, All Might and I were doing some physical work ourselves. He motioned to his own P uniform. And we just wanted to see how you were doing. What happened to your wounds? You were in bandages when I left this morning. Izumi looked him up and down. Recovery girl fixed me up. All Might thought I should get in as much training as I can before the event. He flexed his fists, grinning. He's also going to tape all the classes for me so I can keep up. Then why the hell was she here pretending to be him? She could be the one studying and such, and he could be in class dealing with the frustrating Bakugo, the flirtatious Ochako, and the handsy Todoroki. I really hate you both right now. She sighed and stretched out. I'm taking notes on the class and was gonna give you the details later. You didn't have to come. I wanted to see it for myself. You got 3rd place in the assessments. That's amazing, Izumi. I was aiming for the top, you numbskull. Why is it when I'm not trying to impress anyone I end up getting number 1, but the moment I put any effort I'm shoved down? 'Tis the way of life, I'm afraid. Still, if you continued to show no effort, your place in the spotlight wouldn't last. All Might spoke wisely and earned a glare from Izumi. Both himself and Inko had been very calm and moderate people. Where had she learned this temper from? All Might suddenly got a flashback of 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 punching him in the gut and shouting at him. His face went blue. That's where. I should have just gone with my original plan and tried not to stand out at all. People are gonna notice our differences immediately once we establish back during the sports festival. She ran fingers through the long part of her hair. On the bright note, it looks like you and 𝐀𝐮 are getting along better. Izuku smiled. I'm glad. Just what quirk assessment were you watching? Her eyebrow twitched. We were arguing the whole time. No, you were laughing too. His smile brightened when Izumi's face lightened. You were enjoying yourself, come on, admit it. No way. She shouted. I'm only acting like this because I know how you feel about him and I don't want to ruin it for you. So don't get any ideas that the two of us would have any sort of bond, because it just ain't happening, Izuku. Deku, where the hell did you go? Come on, All Might. She grabbed the man by the tie and ran off with him in tow so Izuku could deal with his crush. Izuku squeaked and held out a hand. Wait, Izadash, there you are. Bakugo crunched his knuckles. I've had just about enough of your running away. Who's running? Izuku offered a nervous smile. At any rate, looks like we tied. Teeth, the next time won't be so easy. He grabbed Izuku by the chin, gripping it firmly. You've been acting awfully weird. What do you mean? Izuku blinked and tried to keep himself from trembling when he felt Bakugo's grip tighten. This hot and cold game you're playing. What happened to our deal? He shoved Izuku back on the wall. I haven't forgotten, 𝐀𝐮, but I just thought, maybe you would prefer it like this. Being rivals and friends rather than dash. I told you it was fine. Bakugo shouted. You think I'm an idiot? I know I've got no chance with your sister. She made that point perfectly clear when I saw her after the exam. Izuku's eyes widened at that. Izumi hadn't told him about that encounter. You saw her? Yeah, she was putting flowers by your old building. I thought it was you at first, but I was wrong. I tried walking her to the station and she wouldn't let me anywhere near her. She even punched me. Why is it your sister has more ball than you do? Or at least up until now she did. What's gotten into you, Deku? What are you hiding? Should he tell him the truth? Izuku wondered and clenched his fists at his side. Should he tell him that the person he'd been arguing with this entire time was his sister and not him? It's hard to explain. All I can say that I may not be acting quite like myself for the next few weeks. I guess you could say I'm trying to figure out who I am. He let out a small laugh. I'm sorry, but I need you to be patient with me. At least you're fine the way you are. Don't go changing just because I didn't jump for joy when you confessed to me. Izuku flinched at that and twisted his fingers together nervously. It's not just that. I need to build confidence in myself, 𝐀𝐮. I can't keep thinking myself as quirkless. Otherwise, I'll never be able to stand next to you. What do you think you're doing now? Bakugo lifted Izuku's head by clucking his chin. Keep pushing my buttons, keep trying to outdo me, and you'll have to deal with the consequences, Deku. 𝐻𝐿, you're not your sister, but you sure as hell look like her, especially from the back. He turned Izuku around and pressed up on him. Izuku muffled out and looked over his shoulder. His eyes wet from the sudden arousal. Maybe if I take you this way, I can pretend you're her. Please don't, Izuku teared. If you're gonna take me like this, then imagine me not her. I'm the one that wants it. I'm the one that wants you, 𝐻𝐿. Fine. He yanked Izuku by the hair, tugging his head back so their mouths met. The kiss hot and hungry, and Bakugo's hands rubbed over Izuku's stomach and sides before tugging down his breathes. As promised, I'll kill you. Izuku had changed into regular clothes after showering off. His body ached a little, and he felt drained. He wondered if Izumi was back yet, and decided to wander out front to look for her. The trees and grounds by the dorm were right off the road, and he could still see students trickling out and walking down. He wondered if 𝐻𝐿 had gone home yet, and immediately flushed at remembering their time. He'd been so embarrassed they'd done it out in the open like that, but he had to admit it had added a thrill to the experience. Their first time had been more like exploration and curiosity. 𝐻𝐿 had taken point, and had surprisingly been patient. This time round his boyfriend, lover, whatever, had been rough and hungry, and it was a new kind of experience. Still, it left him sore in more ways than one. For starters, why did he have to bring Izumi into the conversation? Izuku was painfully aware he wasn't 𝐻𝐿's first choice. He made that painfully clear when he'd confessed his feelings. After his mom died and his life began to change, Izuku felt he had nothing to lose. So after the funeral, already riled up with emotions, he pulled 𝐻𝐿 aside and confessed everything. The fact he got his quirk, the fact he and his sister would be moving out of town, and that he'd always been in love with him. Bakugo had taken to his confession in a way Izuku hadn't expected. Flashback, are you serious? You wait till now to tell me all this. I already knew you DMN nerd. Izuku wiped tears away as surprise replaced the sadness. Really? It's stupidly obvious. So what now? You expecting a kiss goodbye? Bakugo yanked at the tie his mother had forced him to wear with the all-black suit. I wanted to. Izuku held out his hands, panicking and blushing. I'll make it easy for ya. Bakugo snagged Izuku by his own tie and yanked him forward. He bent his head down and kissed him 𝐻𝐿 on the mouth. Smoke came out of Izuku's ears as his face went bright red and his entire body went rigid in shock. His mouth parted trying to speak, but Bakugo just slipped his tongue inside and deepened the kiss. Izuku thought he'd melt from the heat of it. He was immediately pushed back, Bakugo liking his lips from the taste and then snarling at the stupid look on Izuku's face. You think you can just confess like that and leave? Just who the hell do you think you're messing with, Deku? I don't exactly have a choice in the matter. Izuku stammered and pat his flushed cheeks. His eyes were spinning and he felt so hot. 𝐻𝐿, why did you dash? Do you want to be lovers too? Bakugo responded calmly, and Izuku thought he'd faint from the heat that now expanded head to toe. I'm not into guys, but I can do it if it's you. You're the closest thing I'm ever going to get to the real thing. He rubbed the back of his neck, snarling at his own small confession. Izuku blinked and clutched his heart. What do you mean by that? If I had a choice in the matter, I'd date your sister, not you. Pain already fresh in Izuku's heart bled openly. Oh, then why don't you? Because your sister hates me. Which is fine. The more she hates me, the angrier she gets, and I like her better that way. It's better than seeing her cry like I did today. Uncomfortable with the emotion rising in him, Bakugo fidgeted. So do we have an agreement or what? You get what you want, and I have a way of getting over your sister. Deal. 𝐻𝐿, if you like her then you should just dash, yes or no, demand it. Bakugo shouted at him. I won't ask again. What could he say? Bakugo was giving him a chance, and he'd be stupid to pass it up. I'll replace her. It's more than I expected. Good. Bakugo stepped up to him again, leaning his head down to seal the promise with a kiss. You can move. But you better come back. Yeah. Fresh tears spilled down Izuku's cheek and his fingertips reached out to grip Bakugo's as they shared another kiss. I will. End of flashback. Izuku sighed heavily and he rubbed his chest where his heart ached. He'd been stupidly happy about this chance. But at the same time jealous that his sister had what he really wanted. She had 𝐀𝐮𝐿's love. Or at least his attraction. The only reason his 𝐀𝐮 was even remotely attracted to him was because he looked like his sister. I wonder how long I'll be able to keep him like this. Maybe it would just be easier if Izumi liked him back. Then I could move on somehow. There he is. Deku-kun. Deku. Izuku tensed up and felt like an idiot. While he was lost in thought, he'd wandered off to the gate of the dorms out in plain sight for the students to see. Achiko and Ida jogged over and immediately Izuku racked his brain trying to remember the names his sister had called them during the class. Uraraka-san, Ida-kun. Hello again. We were worried. Achiko came in making him fidget uncomfortably. Aside from his sister, no girl had ever even tried to get this close to him. You disappeared so suddenly after class. We thought maybe you got hurt. No, I'm alright. I just came to check on my sister, Izumi. I guess she's not back yet. You have a sister. She peeked around him at the dorms trying to see what they looked like. I didn't know you lived in student housing. Is it nice inside? Yes, well it is you. Everything is pretty big. I'm surprised they let us stay here at such affordable pricing. Izuku stammered, trying to get some distance between him and the girl. She had no sense of personal boundaries at all. Affordable, spacious, and conveniently located. Perhaps I should consider moving into the dorms as well. It's much more efficient than making the hour-long train ride here every morning. Ida nodded his head. I agree, I'll talk to my parents about it. It's probably much cheaper than renting an apartment. Oh, Deku, I wanted to ask Dash. It's Izuku, he corrected, holding his hands up. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Deku isn't my real name. It's just something Bakugo calls me to poke fun. An insult? Ida questioned. Really? I'm sorry, but Deku kinda sounds like an awesome hero name, don't you think? Achiko giggled. Izuku's eyes blinked in surprise and a happy flush tinged his cheeks. Then by all means, Deku it is. He laughed. Seriously, Midoriya-kun. You're just accepting it so easily. It's supposed to be an insult, isn't it? Jich. Izuku. The sound of Izumi's voice had all eyes turning to her. She had to give Mavis her shaper to make some adjustments on the material, and had her girl uniform on hand. But still to be caught in this by Ida and Achiko was unsettling. So this must be your sister. Ida eyed her up and down, surprised at how much the two of them looked alike. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Tenya Ida, and this is Achiko Uraraka. We're classmates with your brother. She knew that already, but she forced a smile on her face and bowed. It's nice to meet you. Izuku. I need to talk to you in private. Her brow was twitching and had Izuku going pale. Now please. Alright. Ga. He choked as Izumi grabbed him by the back of his sweatshirt. Nice seeing you guys again. Achiko giggled at the sibling banter and looked up at Ida. Izumi sure does look like him. It kinda shocked me. It surprised me as well. But they are twins. Did Midoriya seem a little off to you? Nervous? A little, but I don't really think he's the sociable type. Aside from Bakugo, he doesn't really know anyone, so he's probably uncomfortable. We'll have to do our best to make him feel at ease. Agreed. Ida gave 2 thumbs up and the two walked off to the station together. Izumi's dorm room. Izumi tossed her brother on the floor and dropped her bag, inhaling deep. Are you out of your mind? First it was peeking on class, and now you're just lounging about outside for everyone to see. Are you trying to get me caught? Izuku stood up, adjusting his sweatshirt. Well, what about you? Why are you walking about in your girl's uniform? I asked Mavis to make some adjustments. After we left you alone with Bakugo, All Might let me change in the teacher's facility and told me a bit of what to expect tomorrow. He said we're having battle practice during hero basic training and several of the students have problematic quirks like explosions, acid, and lightning. I don't want it to accidentally get burned or ripped off, so Mavis is gonna make it out of more durable material. I am still a student at this school even if it's independent study, so I can be seen walking about in my uniform. I'm a student here too, and if I hadn't peeked in on that class I wouldn't have known the names of those two classmates. Yes, you would. She shoved a notebook in his face and had him flipping through it. What's this? It's notes on all the students. During the class I watched them and took notes on their quirks and personalities. This way you can familiarize yourself with the class and not feel left out. Did all this for me? He looked up surprised. Thanks, Izumi. Don't mention it. Now she pointed to the Jack and Jill style bathroom. Get out of here so I can change. Then I'll give you better details on what's going on. The following day Mavis delivered the shaper bright and early, which was a relief. She hadn't wanted to walk to school in her girl's uniform and risk running into any of the other classmates. She didn't want them meeting her too early and getting suspicious. She set her bag down on the desk and tensed up when she felt two hands slap down on her shoulders. Good morning, Deku-kun. Achiko giggled, pushing her 𝐴𝐵 up on her back and making her sigh. The girl was seriously unaware of any sort of personal boundaries. You really gonna keep calling me, Deku? She looked over her shoulder, raising a brow. You said it was okay. Does it bother you after all? Achiko pulled back, frowning. No, she gave a soft smile. If it didn't bother her brother, then she would put up with it. I'm just wondering if I'm gonna have to legally change my name, is all. That made Achiko laugh. She squeaked when Bakugo's fist suddenly came down beside her and letting loose an explosion. Achiko clung to Izumi's arm and Izumi gave an exasperated expression to Bakugo. Did you have to do that? She was in the way. Bakugo glared at her, making her cower more. The beach still was. Why the hell was Deku letting this chick cling all over him? Get lost, round face. Kaken, you're being mean, knock it off. Izumi looked back at Achiko. You better go to your seat, 𝐴𝐵-san. Kaken's moody first thing in the morning. Shut up, I am not moody, she's just annoying. He glared at Achiko till she completely rounded them and went to her seat. Since when have you been on friendly terms with her? I told you she's the reason I got the highest score, and really Kaken, if you're jealous then just say so. Izumi sat and let out an oof when he kicked the desk, making it j. Hey yourself, otherwise we're gonna have a repeat performance of yesterday. He yanked his books out to start morning class, not noticing Izumi's stares suddenly harden. Performance. Hero basic training. The modifications to the shaper and costume were perfect. Though she didn't care for the full mask and mouth guard, the material was a deep dark green, woven with more durable material. Despite her short stature, the shaper made her lines look bold and strong, and she cracked her knuckles, eager to test it all out. Ah, Deku-kun. Achiko jogged over, holding her cheeks. You look great. I was expecting something a little more hard-edged, but you actually look cute. Izumi grunted at the word and laughed nervously. Cute. Yeah, sure, that's the word every guy wants to hear next to fluffy. You on the other hand, 𝐴𝐵-san, look great. You think so? I'm a little embarrassed because they made it all skin tight. She rubbed the back of her head, blushing. You could always ask them to change it later on, but I really do think you look cute. Izumi raised her head and saw Bakugo and had to hold in a laugh. Whereas Bakugo looks like a rooster. Shut up, I don't want to hear that from someone dressed like a ∑ rabbit. Bakugo pointed accusingly. All Might took notice of the two bantering and saw the costume in question. He had to hold in a laugh when he saw the similarities in himself and the designs of the costume. So obvious. He caught Izumi's glare and a bead of sweat trickled down his temple. The girl really did have a temper that matched against young Bakugo. He cleared his throat and motioned with his hands. Now then, we will begin our battle training exercise. The lot of you will be split into heroes and villains and face off in 2-on-2 indoor battles. Without any basic training. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 asked, her wide eyes staring almost emotionlessly, but her voice was cute and quirky to make her overall look and personality likable. These are battles to help you understand basic training. All Might explained and started going into details on how the battles would work. Izumi crossed her arms, listening to the explanation, and she fully understood what this exercise would represent. Yesterday they'd all gotten a chance to see each other use their quirks, But today they were being tested to see how well they could control their quirk when facing against actual people. Unlike with the robots, Izumi had to be careful on how much power she was releasing. If she went beyond 10%, her power could very likely kill someone, and she imagined many of the others had the same concern. She looked around at her class, thinking of their different quirks and how they could be used, and how she would use them if it was her quirk. Now then, we will draw lots to decipher partners. Is it wise to pick teams in such a haphazard way? Ida asked, raising his hand like a good student. It's realistic, Izumi countered. Most heroes don't really have a choice on who they're paired with in open battle, they work with whoever is available to them. Preparing ahead. Forgive me insolence. Ida bowed respectively and got a chuckle out of All Might. Don't worry about it. Midoriya, since you seem ready, why don't you go ahead and draw the first name? All right. Izumi strolled up and reached into the box. Her fingers tossed the papers willy-nilly before snagging one at random, and she unfolded it to peer at the name written. Masahiro Ojiro, the martial artist with the thick animalistic tail, walked forward and bowed respectively. I look forward to working with you, Midoriya-kun. Likewise, Ojiro-kun. She wanted to let out a sigh of relief that she didn't have to work with Bakugo. That team-up would have been a disaster. Instead, she held out a hand and Ojiro took it with a firm shake. One by one the students drew names until everyone was paired up. Team A Midoriya/Ojiro, Team Beta /Achiko, Team C Todoroki /Shoji, Team D Bakugo /Kirishima, Team E Sato/Siro, Team F Mineta /Yaozu, Team H Jiro /Kaminari, Team I Aoyama /Ishido, Team J Koda /Hagakure. Now then, the first ones to face off are these guys. All Might pulled out the ball, A being under the villain, and C being the heroes. Todoroki and Shoji. Izumi's eyes glanced over at her opponents. She was surprised to find he too was staring at her, and she wondered why it felt like he was trying to see right through her. She subconsciously wanted to cover herself but resisted the urge and averted her eyes back forward. The rest of you head off to the viewing room. Team A, Team C, follow me. Damn it, I wanted to beat some sense into you today. Bakugo grunted and grabbed Izumi by the shoulder, pulling her back. You better give me a good show. I want to see what you're really made of when you're not just running and throwing ball around. I better see some real fighting out of you, Deku. Like I really need you to tell me that. She grabs his hand and pulls it off. Come on, Ojiro. She walked off, taking a deep breath. Why did she feel a bit disappointed her and Bakugo weren't going against each other? Was it because she wanted to test her battle strength against his? She already knew he'd probably kick her butt. But that didn't mean she didn't at least want to try. Ojiro-kun, Midoriya-kun. Learn to see from the perspective of a villain. This will be close to a real battle. Go all out, don't be afraid to get hurt. Yes, sir. Ojiro responded and Izumi numbly nodded in agreement. After being given their instructions, the two headed inside to set up their stronghold. While Ojiro took a look around the room to see what they had to work with, Izumi was deep in her thoughts and strategy. So what do you think, Midoriya? He glanced over, stretching his arms and legs. What's our battle plan? We're at a disadvantage. Izumi said immediately and had Ojiro blinking in surprise. What makes you say that? I'm not sure about the limitations of your quirk, but I'd say we both rely heavily on close combat. If we were out in the open, I'd have more free range with my quirk and could attack from a distance, but these close quarters inhibit me. If I go all out, I'll end up breaking apart the stronghold or seriously hurting someone, but if I use too little, Shoji's strong enough he could easily overpower me. She looked at Ojiro and straightened. This is a team effort, Ojiro. We're gonna need to work together if we want to have any chance against Todoroki and Shoji. Alright, so what do you think we should do then? Our best bet. She walked to the window to see Todoroki and Shoji. We outsmart them. She turned around and looked at the items in the room and nodded. Alright, we've got 10 minutes to set up. Let's make it count. Izumi wiped her brow and her and Ojiro finished setting up their plan. She wasn't entirely sure what to expect, but she knew it wasn't gonna be a walk in the park. Shoji had monstrous brute strength, and Todoroki was one of 3 students accepted through recommendations. She doubted she could win, but demon if she wasn't gonna give it a try. Did you finish setting up the traps? Izumi asked as she smoothed the tarp over the rocket-shaped item. Yeah, you sure this will work? Ojiro glanced at the tarp warily. It's a pretty risky plan. I'm not sure of anything, but if we don't take risks then we don't have a chance. She looked to him and offered a sly smile. Besides, we're the villains, we're supposed to be reckless. Ojiro smiled back and nodded. All right then, let's do it. Shoto and Shoji stared at the layout of the building, memorizing it with a cool and calculated stare. Shoji had stayed quiet beside him, his arms crossed and eyes on the building itself, but he felt he should say or do something. Any idea on how we should approach this? His voice was muffled behind his mask, but concise. It depends on how well prepared they are. I don't plan to give them much chance to think. The hard part will be to figure out where in the building they are. Shoto looked up and narrowed his eyes. If that's the hard part, then leave it to me. I'll find them. Shoji gave him a thumbs up. All Might put the 𝐴𝐵 comlink into his ear. He was prepared to treat Izumi as nothing but a mere student, but the father in him wondered how his girl would fare in a fight against 2 strong boys. He knew Izuku was sitting at his desk in his room, watching the stream of the security videos, and prepared to take notes on the upcoming fights. Now then it's time to start the first battle. Team A versus 𝐶𝐿 to start. Shoji stepped into the front door and let his tentacles spread out. At each tip of the tentacles ears formed and twitched, heightening his hearing sense. When Todoroki joined him inside, the ears changed to mouths and spoke. They're both on the 3rd floor, they're moving but for the most part stationary. It seems they're waiting for us to come to them. Go outside, it's dangerous. Todoroki told his partner, walking past him till he was fully inside. Shoji blinked in confusion when his partner held up his hand, frost forming in the palm. From the sounds of it, they're expecting a head-on battle, but it doesn't matter much to me. Todoroki set his palm on the wall, the concrete freezing instantly and spreading throughout the building. Shoji stepped outside and watched as the entire building became coated in ice. Izumi gasped as ice shelled around her shoes. She struggled and moved, her eyes narrowing. DMN. This quirk. Ojiro tried moving as well, wincing when he felt the skin of his feet starting to rip with his struggles. He went on high alert as the sound of feet crunching in the ice is heard echoing down the hall. Todoroki stepped into the room and saw both villains trapped in his ice. He'd gone up the main steps, Izumi noted, bypassing all their traps in the halls where she'd expected him to come from. The guy was confident and bold, and way stronger than she'd given him credit for. You can struggle if you like, Todoroki told Ojiro as he put his hands up to fight. Izumi was crouched trying to tug her feet free of her frozen shoes, but her eyes stayed HRD on him. However, the skin of your feet will rip, so you won't be able to fight at your best. He calmly walked between them towards the tarp-covered object in the center of the room. In the monitor room, All Might shivered and wrapped his arms around himself to take the edge off the cold. Impressive, he didn't cause any damage to his teammate or the weapon. Midoriya was top in the entrance exam and he was beaten so easily. Kirishima, despite shivering from the cold, stared in awe. That guy is ridiculously strong. Kaminari agreed. He's not beaten yet. Bakugo, arms crossed and eyes narrowed. If I know Deku, he's got something up his sleeve. The hell are you talking about? He's already lost. Todoroki is literally just one touch away from winning. Mineta pointed out. His face. Bakugo commented, looking at Izumi's face highlighted on screen. She'd stopped struggling, was looking over her shoulder, calm and calculated. That doesn't look like the face of someone who's lost. What's your game, Det? Bakugo wondered and clenched his fists and teeth to keep from shaking and chattering. Todoroki eyes the rocket-shaped item under the tarp and let out a small laugh. Did they really think this would hide it? He lifted his palm up ready to thaw it out and remove the tarp. Do you really think it would be that easy? Izumi's face twisted into a villainous grin as she played the role. One for all throbbed in her veins and pulsed throughout her body. She let out a small roar to mask the scream of pain as the ice around her feet broke, setting her free. She launched at him. When he whirled around to face her, she caught him by the wrist and the throat. Her momentum was thrown off some from the slick ice surface, but she used that to twist them around and pin him down to the ground. Todoroki choked as his head hit the ice, stars circling his eyes, and he felt the weight of Midoriya on top of him, but more he felt his crushing grip on his wrist and throat. He wheezed and narrowed his eyes on him. The look on his face sent a chill down his spine. It was twisted and filled with dark intent. "Thaw the ice," Izumi told him in a deep, threatening voice. "That hurts." Todoroki wriggled, trying to see how much room he had. He had him firm, and the guy wasn't letting go. He coughed and grit his teeth. "You do realize I can use any part of my left side for my quirk?" "Go ahead," Izumi taunted as she felt the tips of her fingers begin to chill and freeze. She smiled even as her eyes go wild. "Freeze my grip in place. I'd like to see you rip your own hand off." In the monitor room, what the hell? Kaminari backed up as he looked at Izumi on screen. The chill felt around the room was no longer from Todoroki's ice but at Izumi's perfect portrayal of a crazy villain. This guy is seriously twisted. He's playing the role. All Might commented. Most villains would never give up as easily as 𝐻𝗳𝗓 seemed to. Young Midoriya was planning and plotting to succeed no matter what, and that's the true mindset of a real-life villain. Still, it concerned him at how easily she'd slipped into the role. It would be something he'd have to keep a close eye on. He knew she had a temper, but the question was, did she have the right mindset for a hero? Todoroki and Izumi aren't taking this exercise a little too far, Midoriya? Todoroki narrowed his eyes. "Your feet are injured. You're cutting off the circulation in my wrist, not to mention my air supply. I think you're forgetting something very important, Todoroki-kun. I'm supposed to be a villain." Before we began this exercise, All Might said to go all out, and not to be afraid of getting hurt. As a villain, do you think I care about sore feet? Do you think I care about your well-being? You're threatening my great 𝐬𝐵𝐵 plan, so I'm doing all I can to ensure its success. Now remove the ice. Her eyes narrow and she gave his wrist a tug and his face twisted in pain. "Or I'll remove your hand from your wrist." He wouldn't, Todoroki knew, but that didn't stop him from feeling the threat. The whole point of this exercise was for them to treat this like a real villain encounter. And in a real-world case, he wouldn't have much choice if he wanted to live, and on top of that he was running out of time. He turned his left palm down and the heat rose. Izumi's eyes narrowed in confusion and she glanced down at his hand, then around them. 𝐻𝗳𝗓 flexed his feet as they became free. The ice on one side, heat on the other. "Why didn't you dash?" Distracted from the task, she cursed when Todoroki slipped free to grip the hand holding his neck, and he squeezed and added ice to force her release. Izumi jerked her hand back and immediately punched her hand out to release energy. The glove ripped and revealing long, elegant fingers are from the ice. "𝐻𝗳𝗓, I'll handle this. Go find Shoji. We just gotta keep them both distracted till the time runs out." "Right." 𝐻𝗳𝗓 rushed off before Todoroki could freeze him in place again. Todoroki made a jump for the weapon, but Izumi tackled him. They both hit the wet floor, sliding and slipping, hair and clothes wet. Izumi quickly jumped off him, putting herself between him and the weapon. Todoroki stumbled to his feet, brushing his wet hair out of his face. "You're much better than I gave you credit for, Midoriya." He held his right hand out, ice forming in the palm. "I was trying to end this quickly, but you're not the kind of person to just take a loss. I believe in fighting all the way to the end." Izumi put up her fists. "I don't care if this is an exercise or real life. I believe in giving it everything I've got. That's admirable. But you should also know when you're sorely outmatched." He slapped his hand down on the ground, ice thrashing out, ready to trap her. Izumi punched her fist out, the full cowl stopping the assault, and kicked upwind. Todoroki tossed his arms up to block the shards from hitting his face. Glass from the window exploded open, and he felt his back hit the wall as the force of her power sent him backwards. "Good advice," Izumi told him, breathing some. "Maybe you should take it." "Be sturdy." Todoroki grunted but had to laugh. "You really don't like to lose, do you?" "Fine. We'll do this the hard way." He rushed Izumi, and she prepared to move. Her eyes widened when his speed suddenly increased. His feet turned the ground around them to ice, and she lost her friction. She slipped and stumbled and fell right into his hit. She hissed out a breath as half her body became encased in ice, and she stumbled all the way to the ground. She struggled and shut her eyes against the freezing sting of it. Awawo. Now then. Stay there. I'll unfreeze you after I end this. He walked to the weapon. Won't win that way. Izumi grunted and struggled to stand up. Watch me. He pulled the tarp off, and his eyes widened when the rocket-shaped item underneath was only a clutter of boxes and rope fashioned into the shape of one. What? Heh. Izumi smirked. Told ya. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Shoto pressed a hand to his ear. The weapon's a fake, it's hidden somewhere else in the building. Find it. Sorry, I'm a little tied up at the moment, Todoroki. Shoji said, blue-faced and hanging upside down from one of Izumi's traps. He'd been too big to avoid it. Literally. He looked up at Ojiro, who was tossing the capture tape in his hand. They got me. Are you serious? Todoroki's brow twitched in irritation, and then he jolted when he heard Izumi screaming and his ice exploding off his body. This guy was fin crazy. SHT that hurt. Izumi clutched her arm, looking at the red and raw skin. It's like waxing my dash. She paused, flushing as she realized what she was about to say. Ahem. Anyway, you're a partner down and no weapon. What'll you do now, hero? You're insane, you know that. Todoroki faced her. This is just a school exercise. Why are you trying so hard? Because. Izumi stepped and stumbled, her body feeling the effects of the excessive use of her quirk mixed with the pain of ripping layers of her skin off. Exercise or not. I want to win. You're a strong person, Todoroki-kun. You got in on recommendations and placed second in the assessments, so I knew I wasn't gonna beat you playing it safe. He knew he was killing his time, but Todoroki wanted to know. So that whole playing the villain routine was you wanting to win? Pretty much. Izumi let out a shaky smile. You really are crazy. He let out a smile. I concede. Izumi's eyes widened. What? Winning this exercise means more to you than it does to me. Besides, if we keep going, you'll just end up hurting yourself more than you should. He looked up at the camera. That suit you, All Might? Yes, good call, villain team wins. That's not how this works. Hold on. She stumbled and cursed as her injuries finally caught up to her, and she fell to the ground just as Ojiro and a released Shoji rounded the corner to join them. Midoriya. He rushed to his partner and hefted her up. Hey, sis. He looked at Izumi's arms and legs, raw and red, patches of skin bleeding. She was sweating heavily, still twitching and trying to move. Hey, get it together, Midoriya. DMNU. Todoroki. Izumi muttered and blacked out. All Might quickly joined them, kneeling down to check Midoriya for himself. Is he gonna be okay? Todoroki asked. I didn't expect him to dash. He'll be fine. His quirk takes massive amounts of control, and unlike the rest of you, he's only had 3 years to master it. Say what? Todoroki's eyes widened, then narrowed in suspicion. How is that dash? If you want to know more, I suggest you ask him when he wakes up. For now. He lay Izumi on the stretcher so the robots could roll her to the infirmary. Let's go inside the monitor room to go over the exercise. In the monitor room, well now, with all that said and done, the V.I.P. of this exercise was Ojiro-kun. Ojiro jolted and pointed at himself. Me. But Midoriya was the one who did all the work. Good question. All Might nodded and looked to the other students. Anyone have an idea? Yes, sir. Yaoyorozu raised her hand. Ojiro may have been the least active of all the combatants, but his actions spoke the most true to what the exercise stood for. His partner Midoriya was indeed wise to set traps and try to outsmart his opponent, but once it became clear that his opponent outmatched him in combat power, he stated taking too many risks and acted rashly, which caused him serious harm. An excellent assessment, Yaoyorozu-san. All Might gave a thumbs up. As for Todoroki-san, he clearly had more power than his opponent, but this was a team exercise. He left his teammate to fend for himself without any clear instructions or communication, which inevitably lead to his capture. Ojiro-kun was the only one who trusted and communicated with his partner fully. He completed his task in capturing Shoji and immediately went back to help his partner. "Ah yes," she said more than he'd expected her to, All Might thought. While that is true, Ojiro still needs to learn to take the initiative in certain situations. But yes, that about covers it. Bakugo listened to the assessment, but his mind was on other things. The exercise rubbed him the wrong way. He had wanted to see what Deku could do, but instead what he saw unnerved him. It wasn't the power or the determination, but the look on his face when he'd intimidated Todoroki that had his stomach twisting and realization striking. "Bakugo! Oi Bakugo!" Kirishima shouted in his ear and made him jumping and whirling. "The hell do you want? It's our turn. Come on." Kirishima pointed to the door. "Ida and Uraraka are already heading out." Fine, let's get this over with." In the infirmary, Izuku wore a hoodie, glasses, and a face mask to hide his identity walking around school. He'd been watching the stream of the hero class on his computer and saw his sister get injured. Worried, he hurried up to the infirmary to check on her and found her sleeping in a bed behind a curtain. "Izumi." He pulled the mask down and leaned over her, touching her forehead. "Young Midoriya." Recovery Girl stood behind him and made him jump by poking her cane into his back. "You should be in your room studying." "What? Oh, sorry. It's just I heard she got hurt and you'll get yourself and her into more trouble if you stay." She sighed heavily. She could already tell these Midoriya twins were going to become constant headaches. Like father, like children. "She's fine. She's just resting, so let her sleep. Now shoot." She scooted him out. "I need to go down to Class B and see to another patient." Izuku slipped his mask back on and pulled his hoodie all the way up. He sighed as the door was closed on him. He walked down the hall prepared to go back to his dorm. He let out an oof as he ran straight into Todoroki. He blinked and tensed up, backing up quickly. Midoriya." Izuku held in the squeak and quickly shook his head, pointing down the hall before making a quick escape. Todoroki watched him leave, his brow rose curiously. Probably just my imagination." Todoroki glanced down the hall and walked to the infirmary. There was a note on the door indicating Recovery Girl was out. He checked the door and found it unlocked. "Pardon the intrusion, Midoriya." He looked around and stepped inside. He peered behind the curtain and found him sleeping. Recovery Girl had healed the bulk of the injuries, and it was a surprising relief to him that Midoriya hadn't been seriously injured during their fight. During his quick inspection, he had an uncomfortable attraction to the way Midoriya looked sleeping. For a guy, he sure had long lashes. And he knew his skin to be smooth and soft. He reached, letting his fingers gently slide the hand poking out of the blanket. The touch had Izumi stirring, and the blanket shifted. Todoroki's eyes glanced up and saw the line of collarbone. He swallowed hard and flinched back, wondering what the hell was wrong with him. He should just wake Midoriya up and apologize as he'd meant to. "Get it together, Shoto." He muttered to himself and grabbed the blanket, pulling it off. "Oi, Midor-. His eyes widened at what he saw underneath. In order to get to the bruises and broken skin along the abdomen, Recovery Girl had removed the shaper. What lay underneath was a female, bandaged from BRST to torso. Shock had him stumbling backwards and falling over the chair. He expected the noise to wake her, but Izumi remained sleeping. Deciding quickly he needed to get up and leave, Todoroki replaced the sheet over her, his face going bright red at the fact he was tempted to steal another glance. Midoriya was a girl. Why was she pretending to be a guy? Did the teachers know about this? Obviously Recovery Girl knew. How should he react? What should he do? Why was it that now that he knew she was a girl that all these little images of her suddenly looked so cute and appealing? I must be out of my mind. He'd have to apologize another day. There's no way he'd be able to face him. Midoriya now. Later, Izumi winced as she slipped her uniform back on. She'd been out like a light for the bulk of the day and it was getting dark outside. She'd won the exercise. But it was clear Todoroki was far superior to her when it came to combat. He'd been calm and collected throughout the entire fight, taking her punches and delivering his own with cool calculation. It wasn't just his quirk that was amazing, but all of his abilities were well honed, making him a worthy opponent. Despite that she was irritated, he'd given up and just let her win. He hadn't even used his left side at its full capacity. He could have overwhelmed her easily. What was the guy's motive? What exactly drove him to be a hero? Did he really have any drive? She was upsetting herself the more she thought about it. Cursing, she walked out and headed to the classroom. Classes were over for the day, and she was sure she'd get a lecture from 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 first thing tomorrow about her reckless use of her power, but at this point she just didn't care. All she wanted was to grab her things, go to her dorm room, and take a nice hot bath. Midoriya. She was ambushed immediately the moment she walked through the door. She blinked in surprise as her classmates crowded around her spewing praises, and leaving her flushed and overwhelmed. "You were super awesome, Midoriya-kun." Ishido jumped. "That villain act you put on was super terrifying. It gave me chills." Mineta pointed accusingly. "It was so awesome though." Kaminari gave a thumbs up. "Yeah, and the way you tricked Todoroki into thinking that pile of junk was the weapon was ingenious." Zero agreed. "You stood up to him even though you were totally outmatched, very manly." Kirishima grinned. Thanks I guess." She tried to maneuver around, her eyes spinning as the voices and introductions flew at her like punches, making her dizzy. "Deku!" Bakugo's sharp commanding voice cut through the praise, and he strut through the group, grabbing Izumi by the arm. "Hey, watch it, I'm still." "Let go," she complained when he tugged her back out the door. "Shut up. I need a word with you." He looked behind him at the others and snarled. "In private." He slammed the door behind them and yanked Izumi down the hall to the bathroom. "I said that hurts." "Let go, Kaken. Stop calling me that." He muttered as he shoved her in and closed the door behind him. He locked it and turned to face her. "STRP. Huh?" Irritation read all over her face. "What for?" "Don't give me that look," I said. "Unless you'd rather we do it tomorrow in the locker room in front of all the other guys." "Izumi. Izumi. I'm not Izumi. Why do you think I'm my sister?" Her eyes went wide and her face paled considerably. How had he found out? What had she done wrong? "Don't play dumb, I know it's you. Deku would never act like that even if he was pretending to be a villain." He pointed his finger accusingly, referring to her villain act. "Actually said it myself for not noticing it sooner. You've always had more ball and grit than him. Now do I need to prove it by stripping you down myself, or are you gonna fess up?" Izumi grit her teeth and she clutched her shirt, cursing. "You're such a JRK." She turned around her back to him and she unzipped the shaper, peeling it off and letting it fall at her feet. She then slipped the uniform shirt back on to stay modest, but could no longer button it. She held it closed and faced him, blushing. "There, you satisfied?" "Yeah. How long, Izumi?" He narrowed his eyes, trying to keep them on her face. "How long have you pretended to be him?" "Since the entrance exam." Izuku got hurt and was hospitalized during the exam. He was so upset and angry at himself for blowing his chance, so I took the test for him. She expected an outburst, accusations, curses. What she got was tired frustration. "I knew it. I thought I was going crazy, but that really was you at the exam." He rubbed his face, his teeth grit in frustration. It made no sense that Deku would suddenly become so hard-butted. "It was you the whole time. You guys haven't seen each other in years. I didn't think you'd notice or care." She crossed her arms and turned to the side. "Of course I'd notice when the change is that dramatic. Deku and I have been in a relationship for the past 3 years, so of course I'd care." "What?" Izumi's eyes popped open. "You and Izuku, what?" "I'm surprised he hasn't told you. He had the bright idea to confess his feelings after your mom's funeral, and so I agreed to go out with him." "Just like that?" Izumi turned fully to him, confusion and anger twisted on her face. "Why?" "It doesn't matter, that's just the way it is. If you don't like it, then deal." He hadn't meant to tell her, hadn't meant to go into detail. The fact that she cheated for her brother and was taking classes for him didn't even register in his mind. All he cared about was that for the last couple days he'd been arguing, screaming, and assaulting his childhood crush. Now that he thought about it, he was standing in an empty bathroom with Izumi only partially dressed, and he didn't have the single interest to kiss or touch her. He narrowed his eyes and let them drift over her form. She had such incredible BRSTS and a petite athletic body. He should be a drooling teenage mess, but nothing. Do me a favor and turn around. No. Your back, turn your back to me. He grabbed her shoulders and turned her around himself. He felt the first trickle of arousal and pushed her up on the door and she squirmed. The hell are you doing? The minute stop shoving me. What's wrong with you, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫? His breath choked out and he quickly let go and stepped back. Stop calling me that. He rubbed his face cursing. Only one person is allowed to use that name. Huh. She turned back around and she jerked when his hand gripped her face. Hey. Feel free to punch me for this. He grabbed her BRST with his free hand and kissed her. Izumi's face went bright red and her temples throbbed violently as she rose her arms and shoved him back and punched him as he allowed her to. The F.I.S. wrong with you? That hurts. He cursed and sat on the bathroom floor staring at the hand he groped with and grit his teeth. That thing proved it. He'd lost his mind. Just wanted to confirm something. Put your 𝐷𝗫𝐻 clothes back on. We're not done. She crouched and grabbed his face this time. Don't you dare take this out on my brother. It was my stupid idea and he's just dealing with the aftermath of it. I'm not stupid. He smacked her hand. I won't tell anyone, but you're gonna tell me everything, and I mean everything. I'll tell you whatever you want to know when we get back to the dorm, but until then you keep your demon mouth shut about this, or both Izuku and I will be kicked out. She grabbed the shaper and quickly changed and adjusted her uniform. The moment she was dressed she unlocked the door and walked out. Bakugo sat on the ground for another minute holding his sore cheek and seething. You gotta be kidding me, he mumbled to himself and felt frustrated tears welling up. He just kissed the girl he'd had pent-up feelings for. And hadn't felt a 𝐷𝗫𝐻 thing. The only time when he'd felt any arousal at all was when her back was to him, and he pictured her brother underneath him, Deku. At the dorm, Izuku stared wide-eyed at his sister as she changed. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 found out. He visibly paled and flopped down on her bed. Oh man, this isn't good. Relax. I talked to him while you were at your lesson. He says he's going to keep it a secret, not as a favor to us, but because he wants to see what we're both capable of. I don't trust him, but we don't have much of a choice at this point. Did he say anything else? Was he mad? Izuku sat up on the bed. Not really, it was weird actually. He seemed a bit confused and freaked out. I wonder if it's because he now knows he's been changing in front of a girl this entire time. Or at least that was what she assumed it was. He's gonna be self-conscious in the locker room from now on. That's right. Izuku went blue-face and little clouds of gloom hung over his head. You'll see him every day, and he'll be seeing you. In a locker room, Izuku added silently. Imagining her naked. His clouds got darker. Speaking of which, how come you didn't tell me you and Bakugo were dating? Izuku came out of his gloom but remained pale and discomfort. What? It's not exactly dating. We're just me. In other words, you two are having section. Izumi grimaced but then got a curious look. Who's on top? Izumi. Izuku flushed and held his cheeks as they burned. Izumi had a moment to think the guy really did look like a young maiden in love. Do you really have to say it so bluntly? I'm just kidding. She tapped her pointer fingers together while chewing on her bottom lip. But just so we're clear, you are on bottom right. Izumi. Bakugo household Bakugo closed the front door to his house and kicked off his shoes by the front stoop. His brain had been busy on the entire walk home. He thought of class, his performance in the exercise, and how pitifully lame it was in comparison to the intense matchup of Todoroki and Izumi. He'd won easily with pure combat power and leadership. Him and Kirishima had made a surprisingly good team. The guy had guts and knew when and how to take orders, and Bakugo respected him for it. Still, despite his good review, and despite his new ally in Kirishima, he felt inadequate. Todoroki's raw power was frightening, and Izumi's guts and calculating mind intimidating. Hell, even that Yaoyorozu's clear and concise analysis of each fight had unnerved him. There were so many talented students in his class, and Bakugo felt he was falling behind when he'd always been on top. He'd only seen Izumi's potential. He hadn't seen Deku's yet because the DMN nerd didn't want to show off his quirk. It was the one thing Bakugo could never get him to talk about. If Deku was as good as the rest of them, or worse was somehow better, just how long would he be able to keep him? It was obvious he'd have to make some changes, and Bakugo knew just where to start. He looked to his parents in the kitchen, his mom at the stove, his dad reading the paper. Mom. Mrs. Bakugo jolted and whirled around. The last time she'd heard her little Katsuki call her mom, he'd been in grade school. Katsuki. What is it? What's wrong? Embarrassed and irritated, Bakugo looked down at his shoes. I want to move into the student dorms. Next day, Izumi stood at the front of the dorm watching as movers carried in boxes of Bakugo's stuff inside the dorm. Her brow twitched as the student in question strolled up to her, blank face. Yo, Izumi. Yo. Izumi's temple throbbed and her eyebrow twitched more. Is that all you have to say? That's all I need to say, let's go or we'll be late. Why are those people moving your stuff? Since when did you apply for student housing? She grumbled at him as they walked out of the dorm together. Since I decided I'd like to live in the same housing as the guy I'm dating. Bakugo said it openly and stuck a headphone in his ear. Izumi choked and stumbled forward on her hands and knees. Ugh, my heart. I just can't get past that you and my brother are seeing. I expected you to blow up a whole lot more about the situation. He paused, waiting for her to gather herself. You're taking this surprisingly well. Believe me, you're the last person I want dating my brother. I don't know what the hell he sees in you. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 aside, you're arrogant, rude, loud, abrasive, abusive, I get it. He shouted and groaned in frustration. I take it back, you're not taking this well at all. Despite that, she continued and sighed heavily. My brother is in love with you. I have no right to criticize or judge. I just don't want to see him get hurt. She turned her eyes on Bakugo. So, if and when you guys decide to part ways, promise me you'll at least try and do it gently. Bakugo stopped so he could face her fully. The look in her eyes was sad and pleading. She had always been protective of Izuku despite being the little sister. He had admired her spunk and bravery and had believed that to be the sparks of attraction. But standing here and talking to her normally for the first time, he wasn't even thinking of attraction. All he could think about while staring at her was that he didn't want to end things with Deku. Not that he'd admit it. Sighing, he lifted a hand to ruffle her hair. All right, I promise. Izumi shut her eyes, grunting a bit at the rub, then lifted wide, surprised eyes. Really? A promise is a promise, now move it SQR. He grabbed her head more firmly and shoved her in the direction of the school. If I'm late, I'm fully blaming you. Oh well. All right, I'm moving. Geez, she rubbed her hair watching Bakugo walk ahead. Before she could stop it, a little laugh escaped. All right, Izuku, maybe I'm starting to see why you like him so much. Classroom. Todoroki slowly walked down the hall to the classroom. 4 reasons that escaped him. He'd been unable to sleep properly, tossing and turning, remembering Midoriya's half-naked form, and the secret she'd kept hidden. He wanted to ask why she felt she had to hide her identity, or maybe her quirk affected her gender. Why do I even care? He muttered to himself and ran a hand through his hair. He didn't have time for this. Whatever it was about Midoriya that was drawing his attention, it needed to stop. He had to stay focused. He performed poorly in yesterday's exercise and needed to redeem himself. He won't even acknowledge Midoriya today. He'll completely, no, Koda-kun, you've got a strong build, why aren't you using it? Now arms up, fists at the face. Izumi, short and scrawny in comparison to animal specialist Koda, rose on her toes to lift Koda's fist into the right position. Todoroki felt Cupid's arrow pierce his heart and nearly toppled backward. Why the heck was that image so cute? You all right there, Todoroki? Ida asked from his desk. Yeah, what's Midoriya doing? Koda didn't do very well in yesterday's exercise, so Midoriya is trying to show him some self-defense moves. Ida gave Izumi's look of admiration. He's a spirited and his heart is in the right place. Your showdown yesterday was very inspirational and encouraging for the rest of us. We both acted foolishly, there's nothing inspirational about it. He shoved his hands in his pockets, his eyes on Izumi, who was stifling giggles. Koda accidentally punched Kaminari and looked extremely apologetic. Still, it's hard to dislike him. Homeroom, I want to take a second to address yesterday's hero training. I saw the videotapes and for the most part you all did well. Bakugo, you're talented but watch your temper, it can give off the wrong impression. Yeah, I got it, Bakugo grumbled. Midoriya and Todoroki. You two have what the other needs. Todoroki, you've got talent and raw power but lack the proper tact and motivation to win. You showed good sense stopping the fight, but giving the win to Midoriya was a cop-out and not how you should have handled the situation. As for you, Midoriya, you found ways to work around your weaknesses and outsmart your opponent, but you need better control and understanding of your quirk. I know you want to succeed but push yourself too far and you're no good to anyone. Izumi listened and had to agree with his findings. She'd watched the tape with Izuku and saw her own flaws as plain as day, where during the fight she'd been too high on adrenaline to see it. Yes, sir. Once class was excused for lunch, Izumi was pulled up by Bakugo. You're eating lunch with me? Am I? The irritation in her voice was apparent, but Bakugo didn't care. He pulled her along by the hand despite her complaints. After stopping by the cafeteria to buy bread and juice for lunch, he pulled her outside away from the crowds and plopped onto the grass under a big tree. Sit, Bakugo, you really need to stop ordering me around. We'd get along so much better if you'd stop trying to tell me what to do. Still, she sat and accepted the bread he offered. So why am I having lunch with you? Because when your brother actually joins the class, I don't want it to suddenly seem like we're getting along. You really need to act like him more. People are gonna get suspicious when you two make the SW. He opened his mouth wide and munched loudly on his bread. You've got a point. She chewed on her bread and eyed him. You never told me why you decided to date my brother. It makes no sense to me you'd do it out of the kindness of your heart when you always seem to hate him. I never hated your brother. He grunted and sipped slowly on his juice. I thought he was a coward hiding behind his sister's skirts, and I liked giving him a hard time about it. You have more grit than him, and yet he was the one that wanted to be a hero. You don't have to have grit to be a hero, Bakugo. You have to have heart. All Might said so in all those interviews on TV and in magazines. Teach, you're such a girl. He grunted through his straw. So, you gonna tell me why, or are you going to continue to avoid the question? Bakugo remained silent for a moment, then sighed in aggravation. I told you before, it doesn't matter. The reason I agreed to date him isn't the same reason I stay with him. Izumi looked at him surprised and then with a soft affectionate smile. You actually like my brother, don't you? Shut up, he grunted. Don't let that get around. Izuku mentioned you guys were NTMT, so why don't you take him out on a real date? Bakugo choked on his juice and flustered. The hell you talking about? What makes you think I don't take him on dates? Because Izuku said you weren't necessarily dating, you were just NTMT, which makes me believe you guys have a mostly physical relationship. That diamond nerd, he grumbled under his breath. Well, for your information, I was gonna take him to the movies tonight. So tell him to be ready by 6. He can't go. He's got his independent class with All Might tonight. Besides, if you want to ask him on a date, why not just ask him yourself? 𝐶𝐮, why would I want to do that when you're located conveniently next door to him? Bakugo took another long sip. Coward. Bakugo's nose filled with juice as he quickly inhaled and coughed it out. Say what? I'm not a coward. Oh, a chicken then. She laughed when he threw her empty juice box at her head. Shut the hell up. I'm not afraid of anything. Prove it then. She put her hands on her hips. Ask him tonight when he gets back from training. We have the weekend off, so you'll be able to take him out then. Fine. I will. Now take back the coward comment. All right, I take it back. She waited a beat and then grinned at him. So how bad does it hurt? How bad does what hurt? He grunted at her, his temple beginning to throb. When you take it from Izuku? Kia. She ducked his arm and scrambled to her feet. You little. I don't take it from him, he takes it from me. Get back here, girly boy. He chased her around the courtyard as she laughed and dodged his mini explosions he released in her wake. Such a temper. She laughed and saw salvation ahead of her. She raced forward to Todoroki and raced behind him, grabbing his shoulders, laughing. My hero. Save me from the evil villain. 𝐶H Get out of the way, icy hot, I'm about to teach this troublemaker a lesson. What are you two doing? Shoto looked back at Izumi with a narrowed gaze. Is he bullying you? No, she laughed. We're just having fun. You call that fun? Yeah. Her smile faded and she came around to stand next to Bakugo and look at Todoroki. Haven't you ever messed around with friends before? No, I haven't. He turned away from them and walked off. Izumi watched him, her eyes going soft and sympathetic. The look on Todoroki's face had been suddenly sad and bitter and made her wonder what secrets were hiding behind that handsome face. Later that night, Izuku let out a tired sigh as he walked into his room. While other kids had class during the day, he was subjected to night sessions with All Might to make up for his lack of participation. The way All Might was training him was different than the others because he had no one to compete against. Instead, he was subjected to drills, weight training, and simulations. It was tough, even with his quirk enhancing his physical stamina and strength. The amount of lifting, running, pushing, pulling, and overall LBR was exhausting. All he wanted to do was soak in a hot tub and go to sleep. Those plans immediately changed when he spotted Bakugo lounged on his bed reading one of his textbooks. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Izuku quickly looked behind him and shut the door to make sure no one saw them. He had heard Bakugo had moved into the dorms but hadn't expected to run into him so soon. What are you doing here? I told your sister I needed to talk to you and she let me in through the bathroom. He tossed the book aside and sat up looking grumpy. Why is it the two of you get to share a bathroom and the rest of us downstairs have to be subdued to a community shower? Well, I guess it's because these rooms were designed for independent studies. They allow the student to stay indoors while giving them their basic needs. He motioned to the mini kitchen and small living room space. 𝐶H, when you two pull this off and are in the same class, you should be demoted down to our level. Bakugo watched Izuku fidget and blush, his eyes wandering to the bathroom. Deku. Yes. Izuku went to full attention. Come here, Bakugo crooked a finger. When Izuku didn't move, he growled. I said come here, don't make me tell you again. Alright, it's just. I'm all sweaty and Izumi's right next door. Izuku slowly walked forward and let out a yelp. The moment Izuku was in arm's reach, Bakugo snagged him and tossed him onto the bed till they rolled into a spooning position. Izuku clamped his hands over his mouth to keep the squeaking illness muffled. Relax. I'm not gonna do anything. Bakugo nuzzled into the crook of his neck. The guy was sweaty, but there was something intoxicating about the smell. He pressed up tight and just hugged him, determined to keep his needs and desires at bay. You're tired, I'm tired, so just sleep, you DMN nerd. Oh, okay. Izuku slowly released his hands from his mouth and glanced back at his partner. Are you gonna sleep here? Just for tonight, Bakugo murmured and shut his eyes. Izuku's surprise at his affection verified Izumi's statement. To Izuku, the two of them were just fooling around, having being enting. Well, Bakugo had come here to change that, had come to change a lot of things. Step 1 was to move in, and now it was time for step 2. Deku, yeah, 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. Let's go out Sunday. Izuku glanced back. Out. Yeah, you must get tired of seeing the same stupid 4 walls. We'll go see a movie or something. That does sound like fun. Izuku smiled and turned around so the two of them face each other. Okay, let's do it. Good. He lifted a hand and ruffled Izuku's hair. It's a date then. D-date. Izuku didn't have time to question it. Bakugo rolled over and pretended to sleep, refusing to answer or correct the term. It was a date, plain and simple. Nothing could mess it up. Bakugo stood in front of the dorm, his brow twitching as Izuku stepped out, but was joined by Izumi, who looked ready to go out as well. The two of them were dressed nearly identically with the same black t-shirts, jeans and red sneakers, but Izumi wore a baseball cap over her head and her t-shirt and jeans hugged her curves. What's she doing here? Relax, Bakugo. Izumi said, staring at her phone as she sent text messages to Grandpa Torino. Izuku's head was low and his cheeks flushed with some embarrassment. I'm only taking the train with you. I'll be getting off at a different stop. 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴, we don't need a third wheel, why don't you just go at a different time? Where are you headed anyway? None of your business. She slapped her phone shut and narrowed her eyes at him. Concentrate on your date and not me. I'll even walk behind you. You should call All Might, Izuku insisted. I don't feel comfortable you going out on your own. Don't be stupid, if I call All Might he might insist all of us grouping together. I'll be fine, I'm not helpless ya know. She shoved Izuku forward and into 𝐻𝐵𝐲. Now go, come on or we'll have to wait an hour for the next train. Almost immediately leaving the dorm, Izumi wished she'd taken 𝐻𝐵𝐲's advice and gone later. Watching her brother and his secret boyfriend interact was awkward. She saw the affection and the subtle changes in their demeanor and attention to one another and wasn't entirely sure how she felt about it. On one hand, she wanted her brother to be happy, on the other, seeing him with 𝐻𝐵𝐲 just didn't sit right. Even though she'd accepted it and was beginning to understand his personality better, she still couldn't approve it fully. She felt weird when Izuku interacted with anyone outside of family. Her brother was awkward, but always seemed to make friends easier than she did. She had friends, like Mavis, but didn't really feel close to them. Izuku was the closest thing she had to a best friend growing up. She had relied heavily on him, defended and comforted him against the harsh words of the bullies that pushed him down. In turn, he was protective, kind, and generous to her. They'd bond over heroes and games and other hobbies they shared. There wasn't a time in their childhood where either of them wanted to apart from the other. It made sense to her that she'd feel this tug of loneliness knowing her brother was pulling away from her and leaving her alone. Third wheel? Yeah, that pretty much summed up how she felt. Izumi looked to the heavens when the train finally pulled into her stop and she quickly exited. The thoughts she was drifting to staring at the odd couple was depressing. She looked down at her watch and nodded in approval. She had a date of her own. Grandpa Torino stood outside the station and smiled when he saw her. Ah, good, you're right on time as always. Hi, Grandpa. She hugged the old man, wanting the comfort and familiarity of his embrace. She closed her eyes and let it calm her. Once she was sure of herself again, she pulled back and smiled big at him. So, I take it you want to visit the taiyaki stand. Why else would you want to meet up in the city? It's too long of a train ride for you to travel back and forth between here and home. I'm staying with a friend for now so I can be close by. However, taiyaki is on the agenda. I do like my sweets. He gave her a wide grin and turned to walk with her down the street. So where is your brother? He's out with a friend from school. He's barely gotten a chance to get out of the dorm, so I figured he needed a little socializing. If that's true, why are you having taiyaki with your grandpa instead of being out with kids your own age like he is? He stopped at the stand, frowning at the long line. I like having taiyaki with my grandpa. She smiled down at him and then sighed. I don't know, this entire arrangement has it so I can't really interact with anyone as myself. It makes things good. Well, you only have to put up with it until the sports festival, and then you can introduce yourself to them. Making friends is the best part of the school experience. If I even stay in school, there's no guarantee they'll keep me around once Izuku passes this test. High score in the school or not, I'm not a fighter like he is. Oh ho, you're so blind, child. He tapped his cane with a guffawing laugh. You're twice the fighter your brother is. Not in physical strength, perhaps, but you've got fire. You need to light that fire under his keister sometimes or he'll shy away from his goals. He's got enough fire for his goals. She held up 5 fingers to the stand owner, indicating how many taiyaki they wanted. What about you, Izumi? What about me? What are your goals? Do you want to be a hero like your brother? Izumi went silent, waiting until she'd paid for the taiyaki and stepped aside before opening her mouth to respond. Midoriya. The familiar voice made Izumi tense, and she whirled around and went blue in the face at the sight of Todoroki. Is this a friend of yours, Izumi? Torino asked, eyeing him up and down. The boy looked familiar to him somehow. What? No, I think he's in Izuku's class, but she struggled to find the right approach to this. Todoroki only knew about Izuku, not Izumi. Todoroki Shudo, aren't you? The half-hot half-cold guy in class 1A. It is you, isn't it, Midoriya? Todoroki narrowed his eyes. What kind of game was she playing? She was out in the open, and though she was in boyish clothes, her female figure was more than apparent. I'm sorry, this must be confusing. Doing her best to keep up the act, she smiled and offered her hand. I'm Izumi Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya's sister. Twin sister. Twin. He took the hand, not sure what else to do. He looked at the long, elegant fingers, remembering how the glove had ripped off in the fight and exposed them. Yes. She pulled out her cell phone and held it out, showing a selfie of her and Izuku in front of the dorm. See. He saw the picture and was starting to put together the image. Still, that pegged the question of why she was posing as her brother, or was it that he had simply mistaken her for him just because she was in the infirmary? Either way, for some inexplicable reason, he was glad to have had the chance to meet her face to face. For the first time since Izumi had known him, he cracked a smile. It's nice to meet you, Izumi. Izumi blushed at the smile and felt her heart do a little dance in her chest. She couldn't seem to let go of his hand, and her grandfather immediately took notice and took advantage of it. This is good timing. With his taiyaki in hand, he tapped his cane along Shoto's back and bumped him forward, nearly colliding him into Izumi. I just remembered I'm supposed to be meeting with the local hero agency. I won't be able to escort you back to the dorms. He reached into his wallet. Todoroki, is it? Do an old man's peace of mind a favor and take my granddaughter back to the dorms for me. He hands Todoroki a wad of bills. Have lunch on me. Izumi, you be safe, and have fun. See ya. What, Grandpa? Hey, wait. She grunted when Torino used his quirk to jet across the street and jog off. The man was still sprightly for his age. Izumi's brow twitched. The man was as transparent as glass. Interfering old coot. For someone who claims to need peace of mind, he's being awfully reckless in who he leaves you with. Todoroki held up the cash. Shall we go then? You don't have to dash. He didn't give me much choice to say no, and besides, I don't think it would sit right with me if anything were to happen to you. He lifted their hands that were still joined. So, I'll take you back. Izumi looked at their hands, then up at him. She recalled what he had said during lunch a few days before, and suddenly felt the need to show him what it meant to have and hang out with friends. All right, but I wanted to do some things before I went back. Are you okay with tagging along? I don't really have anywhere to be. I just don't want to go home. The sadness in his voice had her instinctively stepping closer and her eyes softening with affection. Perfect, then it's time someone showed you what fun really is. Bakugo and Izuku, well, that was lame. Bakugo grunted as he and Izuku left the movie theater. That ending really blowed. Why set up an interesting plot and end it half-butted? I don't know, Kaken, I kind of like the happy ending. Izuku commented with a small laugh. Everyone finding peace and happiness in the end. Yeah, but they don't say how. They just cut from war to peace with no segue. It's fing stupid. He poured out what was left of his movie candy and downed it, crunching loudly. You have a point, still I like the plot and the acting was good. Izuku scratched his cheek. He hadn't really liked the movie either, but it was the first movie he and Bakugo watched together in public, so it was special nonetheless. Tsich, polish SHT, and it's still SHT. Let's go eat some real food, and none of this candy, snacks, see. He slung an arm around Izuku's shoulder, his arm hooking around his neck to make it look more friendly rather than romantic. The fact Bakugo was showing any affection in public at all had Izuku flustered and his heart dancing secretly in his chest. There's a restaurant right there, it looks nice. Izuku stammered in excitement and embarrassment and pointed out a nice family restaurant across the street. Yes, sure, that'll do. The two of them walked across the street and he let his arm drop as they walked in the front door. The moment they stepped in, voices shouted from the back of the restaurant. Oh, Bakugo. Midoriya. What an awesome coincidence. Kirishima shouted and waved them down. He sat at a booth with Ishido, Ida, and Achiko. Bakugo and Midoriya instantly felt the tension and disappointment in each other grow. They immediately took a step away from each other before walking numbly to the group. This is sure surprising seeing you two out together. You guys really are friends? Yeah. Izuku rubbed the back of his head. We hang out and stuff. You alright there, Deku-kun? Deku. Bakugo's brow twitched in irritation. You calling him that too? Sure, I think it's an awesome hero name. Short, sweet and cute just like him. She giggled and had Izuku flustering. Sparks popped along Bakugo's arm and threatened to erupt. Izuku saw the tension and immediately lifted his hands up to try and calm the situation. Lel, this was fun, we're gonna go sit and eat. He turned to walk away. Hey, why don't you sit with us? We haven't ordered yet anyway. Ishido insisted and snagged another chair from a table. Come on, Midoriya, Bakugo, let's get to know each other better. No thanks. Bakugo snarled. It's too crowded. Oh come on, Bakugo, don't be like that. Ishido grabbed Izuku and pulled him to the table and sat him down next to Achiko, who beamed and looked like she had little hearts floating around her head. Let's all be friends. Friends? Right? Bakugo knew when friends were plotting a setup, and that's exactly what Ishido was doing. She was giving Achiko a chance to get to know her crush and spend time with him. Deku, he jerked a thumb towards the door. Are you coming or not? Oh, well. Izuku looked between the other friends, a beaming Achiko, a silent Ida who was more interested in his menu than the conversation, and two eager-looking cupids in Kirishima and Ishido. Before Izuku could say anything, Bakugo was already walking away. Stupid and turfing girls. Stupid weak-willed Deku, can wait for me. Izuku ran after him breathing and bent over to catch his breath when Bakugo stopped for him. What's that look for? I thought you'd want to hang out with your new friends. That's not fair, he said it breathlessly and pouted up at him. I didn't want to be rude and just leave, but this is our time. This is supposed to be our first date. I don't want to spend it with anyone else. Bakugo blinked in surprise and felt the warm tug of pleasure at his words and the eager look on his face. A small smirking smile appeared, and Bakugo lifted a hand to ruffle his hair. All right, you nerd. Where do you want to go eat then? Izuku poked his fingers together and spotted the hot dog stand across the street in a park. Let's eat there. You know something, Deku? He hooked his arm back around him, grinning. You're an awfully cheap date. Todoroki and Izumi had to stifle a giggle when Todoroki's crepe started to melt on him. He looked at his sticky hands with such innocent confusion it had her in stitches. You really have never had a crepe before, have you? You eat it like this. She showed him the proper way to hold it and then took a wide mouth bit on the top. You see, she explained with her mouth full. This way all the stuff stays inside. Ah, that would be more efficient. He mimicked her movement and took a bite. His eyes lit with surprised delight and he took another bite. Izumi's face went bright at this and she giggled again. It's good, right? Yes, very good. Todoroki agreed and leaned in a little closer to her on the bench they sat on. Across from them was the bay overlooking the sea and many fishing ships. He could say without a doubt this was the most fun he'd ever had. Before the crepe, she'd taken him window shopping, played in the arcade where they'd both won silly little toys from the crane game, and finally wandered down to the bay for crepes and sightseeing. This is a good spot too. I've never really gotten the chance to come see the ocean. My brother and I used to live near Dagobah Beach with our mom. It's not nearly as pretty as this because of all the trash people toss there. Her eyes went a bit sad. I heard about that. It supposedly has gotten a facelift recently. Really? Izumi looked up at him. Yeah, some charitable people have been going to the beach every day and are properly disposing of all the garbage. Now those are some real heroes. Izumi declared and bit into her crepe again. Agreed. You said that you and your brother used to live with your mom. Where do you live now? Todoroki was genuinely curious. I mean, I know you occupy the dorms, but I know what you meant. We live with Grandpa Torino. He's not really our grandfather, but he's our legal guardian. When our mom died, he took us in. We've only known him a little over 3 years, but he's all the family we've got besides each other. What about your father? Izumi tossed the wrapper of her crepe away and leaned back into the bench, her face going serious and sour. What about him? Is he dash? He's dead to me, but I imagine to the rest of the world he's alive and well. Izumi crossed her feet at the ankle and lounged her head back. I take it you don't like him very much. Shoto could very much sympathize and tossed his own wrapper away. He's the one who abandoned us, left our mom alone to raise us, and didn't bother to show up even when she died. He's cut himself off from us, so why shouldn't I do the same? She scowled at the sky and raised a fist up as if to punch it straight through her invisible father's face. Izuku still wants to find him, but he can stay hidden as far as I'm concerned. I know what it's like to dislike your father to the point that you want to cut yourself off from him. He stared down at his left hand. So I can sympathize. Aren't you Endeavor's son, though? She sat up straight. Why do you hate your dad so much? He's the number 2 hero to the world, but he's no hero to me. Shoto grit his teeth and he shoved his left hand in the pocket of his jacket. He got to his feet and looked at her. We done here? Yeah, sorry I didn't mean to pry. Not your fault, I pried first, just wasn't prepared for the reciprocation. You often tell people your life story so easily. No, but it's surprisingly easy to talk to you. She smiled at him and stood up as well. You're a nice guy, Todoroki-kun, and this little adventure has been fun. It has, thank you for this. I've never really had the chance to experience this before. It's enjoyable and pleasant. I should thank your grandfather for volunteering my time. Izumi laughed and she took his hand again, pleasure fluttering when his fingers laced with hers. He'll like that. More than likely he'll come visit soon and I'm sure he'll be at the sports festival since both Izuku and I will be participating. She explained as they headed back to the station. You will? Yes, I'm really looking forward to it, and meeting all of Izuku's classmates, properly, she added in her head. She wasn't sure if she really wanted the hero road, but she'd found she enjoyed having friends like Bakugo and Todoroki. She wanted to be a part of that class as herself, and make friends the right way. That day will change everything. It's just a sports festival. Oh no, it's not just any sports festival, it's the UA Sports Festival. Life changes are gonna happen. I can guarantee it. Gran Torino Agency, Gran Torino. Shigaraki Tamura held up a file as he stared down at the bleeding and bruised-up elder. The single guardian listed in the contacts of the All Might twins. Tell me something, old man. Where are they? I don't know what you're talking about. Gran Torino spit up BLD, staring up at his foe. Surrounding him were a group of villains, one holding his head to the ground, another a knife at his throat. His legs were broken, preventing him from fully using his quirk. Oh no. Then let me recap for you. He crouched down, poking a single finger into the old man's forehead. All Might is the bane of our existence, the one and sole hero that is responsible for allowing this world to fall into such a pitiful state by allowing people to walk around smiling and carefree and unaware of the world's underbelly. It was said he had no wife, no children, and yet I hear whispers that the man has successors, not one but 2. Rumors? Who could possibly succeed the symbol of peace? Torino choked out. See, that's what I said. But dash, he tosses the file down showing Bjarg's records. Then a little birdie gave me these big records for one Izuku and Izumi Midoriya. Their mother Inko Midoriya was, as you put it, rumored to be in an affair with All Might. Oh, and look at this, these little brats were Bjarg in the perfect time frame of their affair. Do you know what that tells me, old man? That you care entirely too much about other people's SEC life. Torino shot back and got smacked across Tei's face for his trouble. He felt the skin of his cheek crack and bleed. It means, you irritating old man, that the rumors are true. All Might has children. This is Izuku and Izumi Midoriya. There's been no record of them for the past 3 years. It was as if they vanished. The last one in contact with them was you, old man. So tell me where they are, and I might just spare your pathetic existence. Those twins are far out of your reach, you villain-some. Every day they grow more and more like their father. Stronger, wiser, and there's not a thing you can do about it. They'll succeed, All Might, and the world will remain at peace. You're sadly mistaken, old man. Tamura stretched out his hand over Torino's face. The world will crumble to pieces. He smiled wickedly from behind the hand clasped over his face. I'll make certain of that. Izumi let out a long laugh as her and Todoroki turned the corner to the school dorms. Bakugo and Izuku had already made it back and were sitting on the steps, both looking grim. Todoroki took one look at Izuku and immensely felt better about Izumi's story. So, the two of them were twins, but which one was his real classmate? Hey, you two, Izumi called out, waving her arms, smiling. Why the long faces? Was the movie that bad? Izumi. Izuku stood up, his grim face had Izumi's smile fading fast. You should sit down. What is it? She walked faster and her heart caught in her throat. Izuku took her hands. He had done the same thing when their mother had died. Izuku, what happened? It's Grandpa Reno. Izuku glanced up at Todoroki, who joined them, his face stoic but eyes narrowing on the two of them. He's in the hospital. What? Izumi pulled her hands away. But I was just with him earlier. What happened? Did he have a heart attack? I told him eating too many sweets could dash. No, Izumi, please listen. He struggled for composure, his hands bunching at his sides. He was attacked by villains. He was tortured and left to die. Her breath hitched and she backed away. She felt Todoroki's hands on her shoulders and shrugged them off. No. There has to be some mistake. Grandpa's retired, he doesn't fight crime anymore. She choked on a sob and bat away tears. He's next to harmless. Why would anyone want to hurt him? I don't know, Izumi. All Might and the principal are putting us on lockdown until they can get to the bottom of this. I should have stayed with him, Izumi whispered and turned to Todoroki. If I'd stayed with him or insisted he come with us, your grandfather had his reasons, Midoriya. I only met him for a few moments, but even I could tell you he would have gotten his way. What's more important is making sure he's okay. He looked to Izuku. Have you gone to see him at the hospital yet? No, this time Bakugo stood up, his face in a snarl. All Might and Mouse Face won't let us leave the campus grounds. If you ask me, they know something and just aren't telling us. It's pissing me off. Like hell they're gonna keep me from seeing my own grandfather. Izumi narrowed her eyes and grit her teeth. I don't care if I have to go to every hospital in this stupid city, I'm going. She turned to run off, but found herself staring up at All Might, who had appeared from nowhere. Not so fast, young lady. I can't have you running off just yet. He rose a finger up as if to lecture. I'll tell you what you want to know, but we must go inside. Young Todoroki, I think you should stay here as well for the night. I'll call your father and inform him of the situation. You're gonna call my old man? Todoroki had to laugh at that. That ought to be good. The group made their way inside the dorms. The four of them sat on the couch as All Might stood in front, arms crossed, and mind whirling on how to go on explaining the situation. The villains that attacked Gran Torino were not after him, but of someone he's connected to. His injuries imply he was beaten and tortured for information. He's unconscious and badly wounded, but the doctors all say he'll make a full recovery with time. There's some good news at least. Izuku said with a sigh of relief and clasped his sister's hand in his. Right. They're after someone connected to Grandpa. It's difficult to say, but until he wakes up we'd best not take any chances or jump to any conclusions. Until he does recover, it's best you two not leave campus grounds without Teacher 𝐬𝐮𝐲. The twins nodded in understanding. All Might approached them and knelt to be on eye level. There's more, but it can wait till morning. You've both had a long day, and you've school tomorrow. He placed hands on their shoulders. Try to get some rest. He stood up and left, the room becoming eerily quiet without his presence. Todoroki felt a bit out of place and stood up. Dangerous situation or not, I don't think I'm gonna stay here. I'll have my dad's driver come pick me up. He looked down at Izumi, who still had her hands clamped in Izuku's. Are you gonna be okay? Grandpa said he was staying with a friend in town. Maybe this friend of his is the person these villains are after. I should have asked Grandpa who it was. You heard what All Might said, Bakugo grunted. No sense in jumping to conclusions till the old man wakes up. He's alive, be thankful for that. That old man is the only family Izuku and I have left. It's stupid they won't let us see him. What if the doctors are wrong and he doesn't recover? This may be the last chance Izuku and I will get to see him. Do you think he wants you to see him like that? Bakugo countered. Better for you that you saw him while he was still healthy and active rather than tied to a hospital bed with tubes and wiring. Kaken. Izuku held out his hands. That's a bit dash. Don't act as if you know anything about this. Izumi countered, her eyes lit with temper. You've never lost someone who was close to you. You don't know anything, so just shut up, Bakugo. She whirled around and rushed to the elevator. She slammed the button for her floor and let out a little gasp of surprise when Todoroki shoved his way inside before the doors closed on him. She backed up into it, cursing. Why did you follow me? Why did dash? The tears slipped down before she could stop them, and she immediately turned her back to him. You've no business following me. You're right. Not quite sure what was coming over him, he wrapped his arms around her from behind. He heard her breath hitch. I don't know why I followed you, or why I'm doing this. I'm not really familiar with friendships, comfort, and all that, and I never really know how to act when someone's hurting. He turned her around and wiped the tears away. However, I do know what I would want. I wouldn't want sympathy, or compassion, or words of any kind. I just want someone to be there, so I wasn't alone. Todoroki-kun, she sniffed and bat away her tears again. You're so kind, even though I don't think you mean to be. I never made it a real habit. I grew up fast and never cared to make friends, let alone comfort them. Still, I'm finding it hard to pull away from situations like this. The elevator door opened to her floor and he skirted her out. Before you go inside, I don't think Bakugo meant to upset you. I think in his own way, he was trying to comfort you too. Well, he said it, she laughed. Thank you, Todoroki-kun. Despite the way it ended, I had fun today. She rose on her toes and kissed his left cheek. His eyes widened a bit at the gesture and he stared at her sweet, slightly teary smile. See you later. She went inside, leaving him alone in the hall. The next morning when she met Bakugo out front to walk to class together, he was holding a single picked flower out to her. It's not much of an apology, but it'll have to do since I can never seem to say or do anything right when it comes to you. Deku said you like flowers, so here. I'm sorry. She stared at the plucked blossom and had to laugh. Todoroki-kun has you pegged. Ah. Irritated, he wiggled the flower under her nose. The hell is that supposed to mean? You gonna take the DMN apology or not, SQR? I'll take it. She grabbed the flower and stuck it in her lapel. Let's go, you jerk. Class 1, settle down, rookies. Aizawa grunted and waited until the class went silent before speaking again. You've all done well in your training so far, but your fight has barely begun. It's almost time for the sport festival and you'll be faced with many challenges. Izumi glanced up from her notebook and shared a look with Bakugo, the two of them suddenly looking very serious as apart to the rest of the class who were pumped up from the news. This festival is a huge challenge and chance for all of you. As most of you knew, this is a golden opportunity for you to get scouted by the many hero agencies that will be attending or watching on TV. Internships, sidekicks, then prodom. This is gonna be awesome. Kirishima punched his fists together and jolted when Aizawa glared. Gomen. As I said, it'll be a challenge, but there's another factor you must all take into consideration. His eyes shifted to Izumi. Especially you, Midoriya. Izumi's face went blue and she sat up straight. Oh boy, she thought, here comes the bomb. I've been made aware that a student from the Independent Studies course has been pre-approved for a transfer to the Hero course. Depending on well she performs in the festival, she'll be joining our class the following week. Achiko narrowed her eyes a moment in deep thought. Independent Studies? She stood up and eyed Midoriya with wide eyes. Izumi. You mean Izumi is gonna be in our class? Izumi. Ashido glanced back at Achiko. Who's that? Midoriya's twin sister, Ida explained. Achiko and I met her briefly at the student dorms. That's right, Izumi Midoriya. According to her file, she's one of the top-ranking students in training and exams. Her score even beats yours, Midoriya. Yeah, I know. Izumi had to smile. Way to go, Izuku. He had taken the written exam and aced it. I'm looking forward to competing with her. That's amazing. Achiko wiggled as she took her seat again. How come you didn't tell us, Deku-kun? For the same reason you shouldn't be so happy about her joining this class. Aizawa, irritated from the constant interruptions, slapped his folder down. This classroom is for 20 students only. If she achieves her goal, that means she'll transfer in, and the weakest link in this class will be transferred out, or in a worst-case scenario, be expelled. The entire class suddenly came in an uproar. Are you serious? Kaminari shouted in disbelief. So you're saying if we don't perform better than her we could get expelled? Hagakure motioned erratically in a fit of panic. If she wanted to be a hero, why didn't she take the hero entrance or recommendation exam like the rest of us? Jiro demanded. She couldn't. Izumi gripped her pen, glaring down at her notebook. She was hospitalized and missed the test. So the school allowed her to stay under independent studies and use the sports festival as her practical test. Why is she getting special privilege? Is your family rich or something? Mineta accused and had Bakugo's teeth setting in a sneer. Shut it, half-pint. It's not like that at all. Bakugo scowled and stood up facing the class. The lot of you stop whining and get your head straight. This is the hero course. If you want to stay, then work hard and don't complain. You can't honestly tell me you're okay with this, Bakugo. Mineta pointed a finger at him. Are you really okay with possibly being expelled for dash? It doesn't matter. Bakugo stopped shouting, his voice going dark and deadly. So long as you rise to the top, none of it matters. So shape up or ship out, side characters. Aizawa, though he didn't like being interrupted again, approved of Bakugo's harsh words. Bakugo's right. This is a good lesson for all of you. He glanced at Izumi, who was giving Bakugo a look of embarrassed gratitude. You can't be a hero aiming for the middle of the pack. If you want to be a pro, you aim for the top. Lunch, I know we should be worried, but I'm excited as hell for the sports festival. Kirishima shouted out. Bakugo's words had pumped him up all over again, and he knew now he had to work harder than before. You're right that we all need to step up our game. He glanced at Bakugo, grinning, the two of them sharing a moment of male bonding. Don't be a dunce and fall into last place. Bakugo warned and lounged back in his seat. Izumi was putting her books away, getting ready to head out to the cafeteria. Speaking of the festival though, Kaminari jogged over to Midoriya's seat and placed his hands on the desk. Tell us about your sister, Midoriya. Ah. Izumi lifted her head up, brow twitching at how close he was to her. These boys had no sense of personal space. What about her? You know what she like? Kaminari sparkled with curiosity. The other students either crowded in with him or strained their ears to listen, all of them curious of her. She's the kind of person who hates being talked about behind her back. Izumi sighed, realizing that harsh tone and words were not her brother's style. The hell was she supposed to say? She rubbed the back of her neck, sighing. She's got a bad temper. I get angry, but my sister is way worse. She and Kaken fight all the time when they're in the same vicinity. That's 'cause your sister's a beach. Bakugo grunted and earned a kick to the ribs. Oh, well, it's true, it. Apart from that. Izumi's teeth grit, her eyebrow twitching irritably. We're twins, so a great deal of our physical traits are the same. Same coloring, same height, similar bone structure. She's basically Deku in a dress. Bakugo dodged the next kick by jumping on his desk, earning disapproving looks from Ida. What I can tell you about the beach is, she's idolized her nerd of a brother since they were in diapers for whatever reason. Bakugo scowled. The only reason she joined you? Is because of Deku. That's? Izumi narrowed her eyes at him, and clenched a fist over her stomach, feeling the guilt. That's not the only reason. She looked down, her eyes saddening. I don't think she's quite figured out her motives yet, but I know she wants to be a hero for her own purpose. While this is all way fascinating, I for one just want to know if she's hot. Mineta put his 2 cents in and earned a smack upside the head from Tsuyu's tongue. No. Bakugo's own temple throbbed. Like I said, she's a boy in a dress, completely not your type, shorty. Shame. Mineta rubbed his sore cheek. Just because she's not your type, Bakugo, doesn't mean she's ugly. Todoroki stepped up to the conversation, having noticed Midoriya's awkward silence and bowed head. I've met her and I think she's quite attractive. I have to agree with Todoroki's statement. Ida pushed his glasses up his nose. For the brief time we met her, I'd say she's got a boyish charm, but definitely not unattractive. Normal is how I would put it. That's true. I didn't know Todoroki-kun met Izumi. Achiko asked curiously. Yes, we dash. The two of you are dating, aren't you? A minute, Deku, what was that for? He snarled at Izumi, who was now glaring at him. Just because Grandpa asked Todoroki-kun to take her to lunch and walk her home doesn't mean they're dating, baka. I see. Todoroki held his chin. I had wondered if my outing with her constituted as one. Of course it didn't. You guys just met, sure you went shopping and the arcade and ate crepes. She trailed off, her face going blue. She thought that really did sound like a date. You've made a valid point, Midoriya. I didn't ask her out personally, nor was the money we used mine. I'll have to think the details over and do it correctly. Say what now? Her head started to spin and she felt the blood rushing to her cheeks. I enjoyed my time with your sister, and I'd like to know more about her. I'll come to the dorms after school and ask her out properly this time. Izumi could feel steam escape her ears as her face went beet red. She covered it with her hands, groaning with embarrassment. Oh God, excuse me a minute. She quickly exited. Todoroki watched her leave, his lips twitching and wanting to smile. So that prove it, he thought. Izumi was the classmate. It would be Izuku Midoriya he'd have to sum up and match his power against. If the brother was anything like the sister, Todoroki knew he'd be an admirable opponent. Ida and Achiko tracked Izumi down in the busy hallway where she'd aimed her escape. After a few minutes she'd managed to calm down some, but for reasons beyond her, her heart was pounding hard in her chest. Midoriya-kun. Ida placed a hand on her shoulder. Are you alright? Why yeah, Izumi tried not to flinch. Todoroki-kun just surprised me is all. I mean he just met my sister yesterday. She rubbed the back of her neck, blowing out a long breath. It's a bit of a shock. Does your sister get asked out often? Achiko asked. No, not at all. She's never dated or had a girlfriend. She's gonna be really confused and weirded out by all this. She's still trying to deal with all that's happening outside class. She doesn't need this right now. Izumi could sense the panic in her own voice. She tried to concentrate on playing her role, but Todoroki's confession had left her flustered and wide-eyed. You're right? Achiko's sudden dark voice turned Izumi's attention and she blinked in surprise. The normally chipper girl was clouded with determination and purpose. Right now everyone should be concentrating on winning and doing their best at the sports festival. She punched her fist in the air. I'm gonna kick some butt. Yeah. Spirits immediately lifted. Izumi high-fived her and felt her calm returning. That a girl, Uraraka. What about you, Ida? Me. You've motives of your own to do well, don't you? Izumi put her hands on her hips, smirking. You gonna let my sister beat you? Certainly not. I strive to be like my brother. He's the turbo hero, Ingenium. Ingenium, huh? Izumi's eyes sparkled. I knew your quirk and costume looked familiar. So you're his younger brother. Truth be told, she'd already known Ida was the younger sibling of the Ida family, but she'd wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth. Yes, he's an inspiration to me and the rest of my family. He's a great leader, a kind soul, and a fierce fighter. I truly admire him and aspire to be like him one day. Ida said, his chest boasted out, pride in his voice. Now I feel embarrassed. Achiko held her flushed cheeks. My motives are so impure compared to yours, Ida-kun. No motives are impure, Uraraka-san. If it motivates you, then of course it's a good thing. Izumi pat her shoulder, oblivious to the little hearts dancing around Achiko's head. What about you, Deku-kun? What's your motivation? Me. She pointed at herself, thought of her brother, and her smile went soft and nostalgic. Well, because of the origins of my quirk, my sister and I were believed to be quirkless. We grew up admiring heroes like All Might, and it became a kind of bonding thing for us. Even without a quirk, I wanted to be a cool hero. Someone who could smile against adversity. That's admirable, but what do you mean you two were thought to be quirkless? Ida questioned. My sister and I didn't attain it till we were 13 after our mother died. Oh my gosh. Achiko held her mouth. I'm so sorry, Deku-in. It's all right, she waved it off, determined not to cry. After she died, and our quirks activated, we were taken in by Grandpa 𝗏𝗏, who taught us how to use it. She looked down at her fist and closed it. I worked hard to achieve my dream to come to you, and now I'm here. Does your sister have the same dream? No, oh, she wants to be a hero, but like I told Kaken, she hasn't quite figured out why. It felt odd, Izumi realized, expressing her thoughts as someone else. Maybe it is because she wants us to stay close, or maybe young Midoriya is here. All Might appeared in a swirl of air and pointed at Izumi. She jumped and backed into the window holding in a stream of curses. All Might, what are you doing here? I've come to find you. He held up his lunch. Your twin and I are having lunch in my office. I'd like you to join us. There's something important I need to speak to you both about. Izumi's expression changed. With a stern frown and narrowed eyes she nodded. Then I accept. She looked to Ida and Achiko. We'll talk again later, you two. For now, can you go tell Bakugo I'll be having lunch with All Might? Sure thing. Achiko watched the two walk away before she and Ida made their way to the cafeteria. All Might opened the door to his office and Izumi spotted her brother in his uniform munching on a bento box. Hey, All Might found you. Come here. Made us both bento boxes. He held out for her, grinning. Before that, I've got a spare girl's uniform in the bathroom. Go ahead and change. But I'm just gonna have to change out of it again. Aizawa is gonna take over hero class for the day, in which you'll be excused from. I'm taking you off campus today. All Might nudged her along. Can't walk around with two male Midoriyas. Go on now. All right. Izumi grunted and walked to the bathroom. She emerged a few minutes later, smoothing the lines of her shirt and fluffing her hair a bit. He'd even included a flower pin for her hair to make her appear more feminine. That better? Very much so. Come sit and eat. He started preparing tea. What's all this about, All Might? She sat and crossed her legs at the ankles before picking up her bento. I brought you here to give you an update on your grandfather. He started and placed a cup of tea in front of her. And to give you that explanation that you wanted. The twins eyed each other and immediately set down their food and looked at him attentively. Their appetites were completely forgotten, All Might realized. Your grandfather was not targeted by his hero status, but rather his connection to another hero. He folded his hands, sighing. That hero is me. Izuku's eyes widened at this. That can't be right. Grandpa barely even knows you. You only had dinner at our house once. You're the friend, Izumi murmured, her hands clasping tightly in her lap. You're the friend Grandpa was staying with. Yes, though I'm afraid that's not all. It's time for me to come clean. I was gonna wait till after the sports festival to tell you the whole truth, but in light of the recent events I feel it's time you knew everything. He swallowed hard. Your grandfather was the best friend of my mother, Nana. He helped raise me to become the hero I am today, and he's in the hospital now, because I selfishly asked for him to help me raise my own children. You have kids, All Might? Who Before Izuku could finish his sentence, it dawned on him. He turned his gaze to his sister, who had gone deathly pale, her eyes wide and shaking. No, it can't be. Yes. The truth is, young Midoriya's. I am your father.